Chapter 25:15. Boss, that's demon, Chun Zhao replied calmly. Syndicate couldn't stay calm at all. After leaving Singa outside the gate of his neighborhood, Chun Zhao swaggered off. Shivering in the cold wind, Zinga ran back home while shivering. Since I summoned you, no matter what form you're in, you're still my subordinate. I don't want to admit it, but it's just like you said. Then explain to me about the power of your jealousy. It's actually very simple. A high-level mirror spell can't copy higher-level or same-level bloodlines, abilities, and spells, but it can copy all spells that are lower than the original, Leviathan said. The difference is that to others, it's magic, but to me, it's instinct. There's no limit to the number. Indeed, it was very simple. But the simpler it was, the scarier it was. But thinking about it carefully, it wasn't right. Leviathan's words were all based on his own standards as the Demon King of Hell. Of course, he didn't have a limit to the number of times. He could copy whoever he wanted and as many copies as he wanted. But could his subordinates really be so limitless? Your subordinates also have the ability to copy limitless numbers. Didn't you already come to a conclusion? That means there's a limit to the number. You're right. Then how long can the copied spells last? Or can they last forever? Can they be stacked infinitely? Or will the last copied spell replace the first one after the limit? First, let me explain the number. First of all, let me explain the quantity. This has nothing to do with the magic itself. It has to do with magic power. For example, if I copy one of your magic spells, it will consume half of my magic power. If I want to copy a second magic spell of the same level, it will consume all of my magic power. I have mastered 2 of your magic spells, but I don't have any magic power left, so I can't copy them infinitely. Secondly, using your magic spells also requires magic power, so I can't use all of my magic power to copy and ignore the magic power needed to use it. As for your second question, the duration of the copied spell. If I copy one of your spells, then I can learn it. There's a small problem here, whether I can learn it or not. If I can learn it, then it will exist forever. If I can't learn it, then after the copying effect is removed, the copied spell will also disappear. Leviathan paused for a moment before continuing. Racial talents and bloodlines can't be learned. Special abilities can be comprehended, just like magic. It's possible to comprehend them, but it's more difficult than magic. In order to contain the power of your jealousy, I can only use a higher level of power, stronger magic, and more obscure magic. As long as I can do these 3 things, it's not impossible to defeat your power, right? Indeed, Chun Zhao's heart jumped. Can it be replicated? Every domain is the vein pattern of the world and cannot be duplicated. Even I cannot do it. Won't learning too many spells and other abilities conflict with each other? It's like the bloodline of gluttony and the blood of rage in you. Gluttony will never be poisoned. The blood of rage will never bewitch you. And the blood of jealousy can avoid all power backlashes. Chun Zhao parked his car in the garage. Suddenly, he heard a kitten's cry. Samuel was charging at Chun Zhao in a ferocious manner, making noises. Of course, his ferocious posture wasn't ferocious at all. His pink and tender little mouth. Chun Zhao felt that Leviathan wanted to reveal himself. Suddenly, a sporadic light spot appeared in the air, but it failed in the end. The light spot was also the most eye-catching appearance he could maintain. Leviathan. Samuel. Chun Zhao looked at Leviathan and Samuel. These 2 guys were at daggers drawn as soon as they saw each other. Did they have some deep hatred for each other? Unfortunately, the 2 demons couldn't do anything. One could only wave his little paws in the air, while the other couldn't even reveal himself. Chun Zhao clearly didn't plan on stopping them. He preferred watching a show. It was too interesting to watch 2 demons fight. It would be best if they could expose each other's dirty secrets. Leviathan, you still dare to appear before me? Why wouldn't I dare to appear before you? I'm not afraid of you. Then our 100,000 years of battle can finally come to an end at this moment. With your current self? Of course not here, but it's only my projection that appeared here. But in hell, my real body is still here. You appeared here with your main consciousness, which means that your real body is in a deep sleep. If I attack now, what can you use to block it? Even if my real body is in a deep sleep, you can't do anything to me. Don't forget that we're on the same level. You can't kill me. I'm not saying that I'm going to destroy your body. My target is your kingdom. I can take advantage of the moment when you can't retaliate or resist to completely destroy your kingdom. You could do nothing but watch your people struggle in misery and be destroyed. If you destroy my kingdom, then I'll lose my last restraint. When my main consciousness returns, you won't be able to stop me from destroying your kingdom either. The two demon kings threatened each other, but they didn't really do anything. Remember to inform me when you're going to fight. I'll go down and watch. It'll definitely be exciting. Who said we're going to fight? Samuel glanced at Chen Zhao and rolled his eyes. But weren't you guys at daggers drawn just now? Are you joking? Of course. As the rulers of two hells, we have to greet each other in a special way. We can't be like you humans, like hi, hello, or like you Chinese, have you eaten? So you're saying mean things to each other as greetings? If there's an opportunity, I don't mind turning greetings into reality. Chen Zhao was speechless. Your greetings are really refreshing. Leviathan's consciousness floated above Samuel's head. The two demon kings started asking each other about how they were doing. They really did look like two long-lost friends. Regardless of whether they were feigning civility or not, it wasn't good news for the other pets at home that had demon identities. Before, they only had Samuel above them. Now, there was another one, Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 25:16. Of course, Leviathan could only threaten the demon pets at home. After all, Samuel's main body and consciousness were in hell. If any pet in the house dared to disrespect him, he would definitely be killed. If any pet dared to disrespect him, he would capture their main body in hell and beat them up. For example, Beelzebub, Ammon, and Raymond were all projections. Their main bodies were still in hell. Of course, for the cowards at home, Samuel's words were basically the law. Even if his projection was a kitten, no demon pet dared to disobey him. Even Black Ma and White Ma, who had their main bodies, were living well in the human world and in Chen Zhao's home. Even if they decided to stay with Chen Zhao for the rest of their lives and didn't plan on returning to hell, they were still afraid of Samuel. They knew that the kitten wasn't a threat to them at all, but Samuel just acted like a tyrant above them. They could only lower their heads and accept it. Leviathan was in a similar situation. Originally, there was already one tyrannical ruler over their heads, and now there was another. The next day, Vincent came as scheduled. Vincent stood at the door of Chen Zhao's house, looking a bit awkward. Is this how you came? Chen Zhao's cold gaze made Vincent very uncomfortable. What else? Mr. Chen, am I not dressed formally enough? Chen Zhao was the one who'd told him to dress more formally yesterday. He was wearing a suit and tie. His hair was shiny, and his shoes were shining. Wasn't that formal enough? Those who didn't know would think that he was getting married today. Wasn't that formal enough? Chen Zhao's gaze was still cold. He glanced at Vincent. Come in. Vincent could clearly feel Chen Zhao's displeasure. Mr. Chen, did I do something wrong? Cut the crap. Let's get down to business. Chen Zhao sat on a chair in the yard and had Vincent sit opposite him. Let's continue from yesterday. Mr. Chen, what do you think about the alliance between you and my master? Never thought about it. Mr. Chen, with Leviathan aberrant to Jemus's ambition and methods, he will definitely not be willing to hide in Bermuda. Perhaps it won't be long before he starts a war against human society. He was even involved in the 2 world wars in the past, Chen Zhao said. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. What does that have to do with me? Chen Zhao basically didn't believe Vincent's words. He was exaggerating the threat. That Leviathan aberrant to Jemus had existed for who knew how many years. Unlike the dormant demons, Leviathan aberrant Tegmus was quite active. He probably knew this better than anyone else, even the demons. Although humans were individually very weak, their overall strength was very strong. Furthermore, humans were not always weak. There were always abnormal individuals. For example, people like Chen Zhao, Zhang Tianyi, and 23rd generation Blood Mary. There were also those top forces. Which one of them could be swallowed by Leviathan aberrant to Jemus? If he had the ability, Leviathan aberrant to Jemus could bring his men to Mount Longhu's celestial master sect. Let's see if he can walk out of there in one piece. Take control of Bermuda and then plot to counterattack human society? Don't joke around. Can't you be more serious? Vincent also felt Chun Zhao's disdainful gaze. He was also very embarrassed. He had said too much just now. Such foolish words could only be used to deceive hot-headed people who had never come into contact with the supernatural world. Deceiving a big boss of the supernatural world like Chun Zhao was really stupid. Leviathan Aberantagemus has used Bermuda as his base. He has already plundered the wealth of human society for thousands of years. That wealth can even topple a country. Vincent looked at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao pursed his lips again. If the accumulated wealth was exchanged for natural resources of the same value, maybe Chun Zhao would be tempted. However, if it was a piece of art from ancient times, everyone had their own price. It could be a lot, or it could be a little. But if there was a bunch of them at once, the price was no different from scrap metal. The price was not stable, and it was too difficult to exchange them for cash. Secondly, there were metal currencies like gold and silver. If there was a lot of them, it was also very difficult to exchange them for cash. Especially if there were too many of them at once, the market would collapse. Leviathan Aberantagemus had been active for thousands of years. Apart from the wealth he had plundered in recent times, what wealth could he have plundered a few centuries ago? It was just art and gold and silver. Leviathan Aberantagemus' wealth isn't limited to the wealth of ordinary people. He also controls the vast wealth of the supernatural world. Vincent glanced at the children inside. Mr. Chun, you have a lot of children, right? Instantly, Vincent felt a terrifying murderous aura. Wait, Mr. Chun, that's not what I meant. Vincent immediately realized that he had said the wrong thing. Mr. Chun, what I meant was that your children will definitely need a lot of cultivation resources in the future. Even if you have shocking wealth in human society, it's hard to support the consumption of so many children. Chun Zhao's gaze grew colder. He didn't say anything and just stared at Vincent with a creepy gaze. Vincent only felt that it was very difficult, but he could only brace himself and continue. In this world, apart from those top powers, there are very few powers that can provide so many children with cultivation resources. Mr. Chun, my master is very sincere. Even if you destroyed the three-headed dog lab, my master has no objections. Sincere? You came empty-handed. Is that sincerity? Duong. At this moment, Vincent finally understood why Chun Zhao had been so unhappy from the moment he'd seen him. This was the emotional problem. He'd come empty-handed. Actually, Vincent had been in human society for a long time. Of course, he knew some of the ways of the human world. But he had no friends in human society. Most of the time, he wouldn't go to so-called visits. He definitely wouldn't bring gifts. So he never had this concept. Only now did he finally understand. Mr. Chun, can you make it up? Forget it, Chun Zhao said with a cold expression. Let's talk business. Vincent couldn't be so natural now. His mind was filled with gifts, gifts, gifts. Your master is also a demon, right? Speaking of which, your master should be closer to the master of Bermuda. At least compared to humans, shouldn't you guys form an alliance? This has nothing to do with identity. It's about benefits. Leviathan Aberantagemus has something my master wants, but he can't give it to him. So he and my master will only stand on opposite sides. Chapter 25:17. I want to know what your master wants from Leviathan Aberantagemus. Vincent didn't answer Chun Zhao's question. After a while, Vincent finally said lifespan. Chun Zhao furrowed his brows. Were you asking your master just now? You've been in contact with him, right? Vincent's scales flipped over like a snake shedding its skin. Then, he transformed into another form. It was an old man with a head full of white hair. He was a medium build and was skinny. He wore casual clothes. Hello, Mr. Chun. Who's talking to me now? I'm Vincent's master. I'm Aqualati Gisli. Of course, I have another more famous name. Maybe you've heard of me. Oh, I'd like to hear more. Giant North Sea Monster. Chun Zhao looked at Aqualati Gisli, who'd suddenly changed his identity, in surprise. Of course, the name was very unfamiliar but in contrast, the other name was Thunderous. Giant North Sea monster, a famous monster in Norse mythology. Even the modern Cthulhu mythology was said to be based on the legend of the giant North Sea monster. Among the 100 Scarlet missions issued by the 23rd Blood Mary, one was to eliminate the giant North Sea monster. I really didn't expect the legendary monster to appear before me in this form. Can I have an autograph? Aqualati Gaslight looked at Chun Zhao with a smile. He really looked like a kind old man. I can change into any form and appearance. If you're not used to my current appearance, I can change any time. Then, Aqualati gisly changed into a few more forms. There were men and women, sexy and enchanting women, burly men, teenagers, and children. However, there was a very obvious characteristic, and that was his head of white hair. If you disguise your white hair, you'll look more like it. Hair is a physical feature of most creatures. My body doesn't have hair, but when I transform into a mammal or descend with other objects, my hair will turn white. This is because my lifespan is coming to an end. The mutant octopus didn't succeed last time. Without thinking too much, Chun Zhao thought of the mutant octopus. The mutated octopus could absorb the vitality of mammals. It was easy for Chun Zhao to think that their goal was to absorb enough life force and then pass it back to Aqualati Gisli. There was nothing wrong with this plan. He also suspected that the primitive cells used by the mutated octopus were probably extracted from Aquila Gisli. It's hard to define the success of this plan. If we look at the process of the experiment alone, this plan is a success. We created a test subject that matched the target, then released it, carried out the mission, and then backtracked. There was no deviation in this series of events. But the biggest problem is the imbalance. These mutant octopuses extracted my body cells and mutated them. They also extracted some of my vitality, but they couldn't absorb enough vitality. In addition, there were various obstacles in the process. In the end, the plan was destroyed by you. The loss outweighed the gain for me. It consumed a large part of my vitality. Chun Zhao glanced at Aquila Gisli. After talking for so long, it was just an imbalance of income and loss. But this was understandable. Aquila Gisli's body was definitely huge. But what could the mutant octopus absorb? The skin of the whales in the ocean was too thick for the octopus to absorb. As for dolphins, sea lions, and fur seals, if the mutant octopus dared to approach, they might end up as food. Octopuses were an important source of food for dolphins. They didn't care if the octopuses were mutated or not. They were marine creatures, but they could only absorb the vitality of mammals. Of all the mammals in the ocean, the mutant octopus couldn't afford to offend them. The mutant octopus could only attack coastal mammals. But there weren't many coastal mammals either. Logically speaking, humans are the best targets. But if you attacked a human, would they let you go back unscathed? The other coastal mammals weren't easy to deal with either. So there was a problem with this plan from the very beginning. The benefits weren't proportional to the effort. Plus, the life force consumed by a huge creature like the North Sea monster wasn't something a few mice could replenish. Actually, there's a problem with your plan from the very beginning. You can totally capture a large number of humans and lock them up like milking cows. Aquila Gisli ignored Chun Zhao's unreliable method. Chun Zhao's suggestion was indeed tempting. How could he not know? But the risk of doing so is too great. For example, when he created the mutant octopus, the researchers only thought it was a natural phenomenon. But the government had already raised their vigilance and made many preparations. If he dared to kidnap a large number of humans, it would be suicide. 200 years ago, no, even 100 years ago, this plan would have been highly feasible. But in this era, the government was very strict with its own people. 1 or 2 people were fine. However, losing 100 people was not a problem. It could very well lead to a war. And Aqualati Gisli needed more than 100 people. Mr. Chun, do you have any objections to the suggestion that Vincent conveyed to you on my behalf? Objections? Not really. I just don't want to work with you. Why? Is it because of our previous misunderstanding? No, I haven't reached the point where I have to fight to the death with you, but I don't trust you either. I can't think of why I should accept your suggestion with someone I don't trust. How do I know that you're not someone Leviathan Abhantagemus found to put on a two-man show with him to trick me into falling into his trap, and then use me as an example? In other words, if I want to work with Mr. Chun, I have to solve two problems. One is to show my sincerity and prove that you're enemies with Leviathan Abhantagemus. That's right. If you can really prove that I have to kill Leviathan Abhantagemus and your sincerity, I'll agree to this alliance. Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 25:18. President, we're leaving today. Chun Zhao suddenly remembered that Toddy Belster's unexpected call. The psionic team had been preparing for half a month. Chun Zhao didn't know their exact departure time, but after Toddy's reminder, Chun Zhao was a bit dazed. Chun Zhao didn't give Toddy too many instructions. He only said, "Be careful." Toddy had been a bit excited at first, but now he suddenly calmed down. He'd seen how terrifying Chun Zhao was many times. Even the power he had now was given to him by Chun Zhao. As a result, he was always in awe of Chun Zhao. Since Chun Zhao told him to be careful, this trip probably wouldn't be as easy as he thought. When Toddy had first obtained the ability to summon demons, he'd been a bit arrogant. Other than not daring to be arrogant with Chun Zhao, he'd basically defeated everything else. But now, he felt a bit uneasy. Just then, a postman drove to the door of the house. The postman stood at the door. He didn't dare to enter the manor, so he honked. Chun Zhao had some impression of the postman. He should be a local in Mountain Town. He seemed to have delivered items to his house a few times. Chun Zhao opened the door. The postman adjusted his clothes and then entered the manor, trembling. Outside the hall, the postman stopped again. Chun Zhao stood there, waiting for the postman. "Hello, Mr. Chun." The postman tried to keep calm so that he wouldn't panic. "Hello, Mr. Postman." Chun Zhao nodded with a smile. "Your letter. Please sign here." "Thank you." After signing, the postman left in a hurry. He'd been to Mirror Lake twice, but it had only been a mansion back then. It was completely different from the manor now. Ever since Mirror Lake Manor had been destroyed by the hurricane and rebuilt, the postman heard that it had been rebuilt. But when he came here again, he realized how much the place had changed. When he stood outside, he felt pressured. After entering, he felt even more pressured. Even though it wasn't his first time seeing Chun Zhao, even though it wasn't his first time here. Fortunately, Chun Zhao was still the Chun Zhao of the past. Chun Zhao had a good reputation in Mountain Town. After all, Chun Zhao occasionally donated tens of thousands of dollars to the town government and the school. Chun Zhao opened the letter at the door. Inside was a very ordinary postcard. But the person who sent in the postcard was no ordinary person. It was Aqualati Gaslight. There was also an address on the card. Chun Zhao frowned. Clearly, this postcard was Aqualati Gisli's sincerity. "Portia, I'm going out for a while." "Okay." Portia knew what Chun Zhao was going to say next. Chun Zhao followed the address on the card and found a slightly secluded villa. Looking at the detached villa in front of him, its location and scale could only be considered passable. It looked like an ordinary house. This was far from what Chun Zhao had imagined. Even if it wasn't a medieval castle in Europe, he should at least get himself a slightly prettier and bigger house. However, the house in front of him was too ordinary. Aqualati Gisli's influence wasn't small either. They could easily take out a cruise ship and use it as a laboratory. His assets wouldn't be lower than Chun Zhao's, right? At that moment, the door to the villa opened and a fat old man walked out. His white hair was very eye-catching. The old man held a cup of coffee in his left hand and a newspaper in his right. He wore thick-rimmed reading glasses, pajamas, and slippers with Mickey Mouse embroidered on them. Chun Zhao rubbed his nose. The old man pushed his glasses up and looked at Chun Zhao at the door, his expression also rather shocked. The two stared at each other for 10 seconds. "Aqualati Gisli," Chun Zhao said first. "You're the one who invited me, but you seem very surprised by my arrival. I'm a bit curious about the American mail system. I once sent a letter to Vincent in the same city, but it took 3 days. I thought you'd only receive it tomorrow or the day after." Taking a deep breath, Aqualati opened the gate. "Please come in. I'm also surprised to see such a realistic, giant North Sea demon. What kind of image do you think I should have? At least ask you to live on an island, Chun Zhao complained. Although I'm a terrifying monster in the eyes of humans, I have to admit that the entertainment that human society brings to life will make any intelligent life addicted. Aqualati Gisli let Chun Zhao sit at the table on the lawn. Please sit. I don't have anything to serve you here. Is your organization short of money? I've invested a lot recently. I had to sell many of my properties. For example, you destroyed my three-headed dog laboratory and the cruise ship, which brought me a lot of losses. Of course, the main reason is that it's comfortable here and there's no noise. But it's really hard for me to comment on your image. Think about it. If I become a big man or a woman and live here, are you sure I'll have peace? Chun Zhao thought about it. Indeed, if Aqualati Gisli became a big man, passers-by would probably think that he was a fugitive or something. If Aqualati Gisli became a woman, others might covet him. Also, maintaining the form of a young human consumes more life force. Your life force already needs to be maintained by aging in form to reduce consumption. It's not that bad, but it's close. I haven't revealed my original form for 50 years. Theoretically, changing forms should consume more life force than your original form, right? Changing forms consumes magic power, and the strength of the form determines how much life force is consumed. Aqualati Gisli glanced at Chun Zhao. If you master transformation magic, you could become an ant. That way, your life will increase by 100 times. Chun Zhao's face darkened. If he became an ant, he'd rather live 100 years less. Aqualati Gisli could find pleasure in turning from a giant North Sea demon into a human. There was no fun in turning himself into an ant. What do you think of my sincerity? Aqualati Gisli smiled at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao glanced at Aqualati Gisli. The few yellow teeth in his mouth were too abrupt. Chapter 25:19. Chun Zhao could feel that Aqualati Gisli's life force was very weak. Of course, this weakness was only relative. Aqualati Gisli's life force might be similar to that of an ordinary person's. If it was on an ordinary person, it would be a young, healthy, and energetic teenager. But if it was on a giant creature like Aqualati Gisli, whose body was like an island, it was pitifully little. My current life force is only enough for me to reveal my true form once and support an all-out battle. If you agree, I'll fight with everything I have until we win. If you refuse, I can only use up the last of my life force as an ordinary person. Of course, in order to obtain life force, I might have to do something like the mutant octopus in the future. I can see your sincerity, but it's not enough, Chun Zhao said. Leviathan Aberkentegmus isn't an enemy to me, Chun Zhao said. Or at least, there aren't enough benefits. Chun Zhao's current position was chaotic good. Chaotic good was the most complicated position in Dungeons and Dragons. It could be a good person or a bad person. They didn't follow the established rules and follow their own. Aqualati Gisli, on the other hand, was orderly evil. He was evil, but he followed certain rules. Leviathan Aberkentegmus, on the other hand, was chaotic evil. He wasn't bound by any rules. Of course, this was only the standpoint of the three of them, not the relationship between the three of them. Aqualati Gisli had designs on Leviathan Aberkentegmus, but Chun Zhao didn't. Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gisli already had the basis of cooperation, sincerity. But he didn't have a reason for Leviathan Aberkentegmus. This reason could be profit, or it could be a threat. Leviathan Aberkentegmus and Chun Zhao didn't have any direct conflict of interest or threat for now. The task of eliminating all evil should be left to the good and orderly police. Chun Zhao felt that he only needed to do his job. Only when chaos and evil offended him or touched upon his fundamental interests would he take action. Leviathan Aberkentegmus has a part of a divine artifact called the Starlight Pointer. Even if it's a complete god artifact, I might not even be interested in it. Why would the god artifact fragment you speak of move me? Although the Starlight Pointer is only a component of a complete artifact, it is a product of the ancient Babylonian civilization. Moreover, it is a component that was created with the power of an entire race. using the power of an entire race to create a part. Chen Zhao looked at Aqualati Gasley in surprise. Is there something wrong with your grammar? Shouldn't it be a divine artifact? No, it's just a part. It said that this artifact is made up of parts created by 4 ancient civilizations, namely ancient Huaxia, ancient Inca, ancient Egypt, and ancient Babylon. It said that this is the greatest artifact created by you humans. What's the use of this divine artifact? Destroy the world? Or can you give yourself invincible power so that you can destroy all your enemies with a single strike? I don't know. Aqualati Gasley chuckled bitterly. But it said that a dragon once used it, and then it was disassembled into 4 parts. I don't know who got it. An unknown part of a divine artifact supported by an obscure legend? That's not enough to convince me. I don't want all of Leviathan Aberrant Tajima's wealth and possessions. Everything he has belongs to you. I only need to devour Leviathan Aberrant Tajima's life force. Chen Zhao was tempted, a part of a divine artifact and an immeasurable amount of wealth. Your daughter has awakened nirvana magic, right? Chen Zhao was displeased by Aqualati Gasley's sudden mention of his daughter. Leviathan Aberrant Tajimas has stolen countless spells over the countless years. He also built a magic library in his nest. There must be books on nirvana magic in it. How do you know there are books on nirvana magic? Leviathan Aberrant Tegmis once fought with the first witch Lilith. With Leviathan Aberrant Tegmis' personality, he won't miss the opportunity to copy Lilith's magic. Who won that battle? There's no winner. It was a battle from a long time ago. Neither side used everything, so there's no winner. You seem to know Leviathan Aberrant Tajimas very well. Are you related to him? He once enslaved me for 1,000 years. Do you think I wouldn't know him? In other words, you lost him. He only wins in bloodline. I can't do anything about it, Aqualati Gasley said. Tell me everything about him. Aqualati Gasley couldn't help but look up at Chen Zhao. Do you agree? I'm the messenger of justice. Aqualati Gasley let out a long sigh of relief at Chen Zhao's agreement. After all, he didn't have many choices right now. Leviathan Aberrant Tajimas is very strong. If we were to classify him according to the ranks of demons, he would be at the Lord level, which is equal to my strength. If that were all, I wouldn't be afraid of him, but the most troublesome thing is that he has the bloodline of the King of Jealousy, which makes him almost invincible. Aqualati Gasley's tone was filled with unwillingness and hatred. In the past 2,000 years, many experts have challenged him, but none of them have been able to defeat him. I have been enslaved by him for 1,000 years. Originally, it would have been even longer, but I found a loophole in the contract and paid the price of half of my lifespan to finally break free from his restraint. So, this isn't just a battle for survival. It's also your battle for revenge, right? Yes. Aqualati Gasley nodded. Of course, our cooperation this time is based on defeating him. If you defeat him, you can get everything from him, while I take back everything that belongs to me. If you fail, you get nothing, and I can only wait for death. Since you've broken free from the 1,000-year shackles, you should be ready for revenge at any time, right? What have you prepared? Divine King of the 9 Heavens. Chapter 25:20. Chen Zhao believed that since Aqualati Gasley had been preparing a revenge plan for 1,000 years, he definitely wouldn't just charge recklessly. I created an army. Like the mutant octopus? No, the ones you killed in the 3-headed dog lab. Then you need to prepare a lot. There's indeed a lot. When do we leave? 3 days later. Do we need 3 days to prepare? No, it's the time to enter Bermuda. To enter Demon Island, Leviathan Aberrant Tajimas' nest, most of them can be found directly by flying over. We need a specific time. Is it that complicated? Actually, it's not complicated as long as you know the rules. Chen Zhao glanced at Aqualati Gasley. Of course, it was not complicated for him. He'd been enslaved by Leviathan Aberrant Tajimas for 1,000 years. The place had probably rotted away. You'll find me in 3 days? No, you'll come to the port. We'll take a boat. Of course. How else do you think we should go? Not a boat. Me and you? A research ship. Why? Do you know how Leviathan Abhan to Gemus hunts? I don't know and I don't want to know. I just want to know why we chose that research ship. Every time Leviathan Abhan to Gemus locks onto a target, he'll leave a mark on it. Only ships or planes with the mark can enter Demon Island at a specific time. Isn't he too bored? It should have something to do with his divine artifact part. He used the Starlight Compass to hide Demon Island. What's the use of the Starlight Compass? I don't know. Even in the 1,000 years I've been enslaved, I've never heard him mention anything about the Starlight Compass. Has he used it in battle? He hasn't used it either. Have you considered that a divine artifact that you don't know how to use at all could change the situation and even the outcome? Chun Zhao asked worriedly. Of course, Aqualati Gisli had considered this too. But at this moment, he no longer had the time to think about how to deal with the Starlight Needle. He had once wandered around the world in search of the lost document, hoping to find a Starlight Pointer or the use of the divine artifact forged by the 4 brilliant civilizations. But he didn't get an answer. Instead, he found some ancient texts. But when it came to that divine artifact, it was always obscure. Moreover, he could clearly feel that some important documents seemed to have been intentionally erased. The rest of the documents were all secretive, and it was impossible to tell them clearly. It was impossible for him to spend all his time looking for documents. He still needed to accumulate his own strength. Moreover, his main body couldn't move freely, so most of the time, he had to rely on his subordinates to complete the task. I've considered this problem, but I'm guessing that the artifact might not be used for battle. At the very least, a single part of it might not be effective in battle. I hope so. Chun Zhao nodded. His alliance with Aqualati Gisli was also a verbal promise. The reason why Chun Zhao agreed was because of his past grudge with Leviathan Aberrant Gemus. It was also because he wanted to reap the benefits without doing anything. Since the psionic ability team went to take the Vanguard, the psionic ability team definitely wasn't weak. At the very least, they could put some pressure on Leviathan Aberrant Gemus. Of course, the best result was that both sides would be heavily injured. But Chun Zhao still didn't dare to be careless. Aqualati Gisli's strength against Leviathan Aberrant Gemus was still at the level of 1,000 years ago. He probably didn't even know how strong he was now. 1,000 years might not be a long time for a Lord-level demon, but it was still 1,000 years. But after all, it was 1,000 years. Who could guarantee that Leviathan Aberrant Gemus would remain at the same spot for 1,000 years? Moreover, Leviathan Aberrant Gemus had a divine artifact in his hands. Aqualati Gisli couldn't figure out the specific functions of this divine artifact. This was a big hidden danger. Moreover, Leviathan Aberrant Gemus, king of jealousy bloodline ability, was also something that Chun Zhao was very wary of. Chun Zhao thought about it and decided to use these 3 days to go into a small seclusion. Seclusion in the river map was clearly the best choice. Ever since Old Turtle had ascended, Chun Zhao rarely came to the river map. It was empty here. Only a few of Old Turtle's internal elixirs were left. Every time he came here alone, Chun Zhao would only think of Old Turtle. Of course, Chun Zhao wasn't such a sentimental person. He rarely came here mainly because he was bored. After all, Chun Zhao wasn't an ascetic. But Chun Zhao felt that he really had to focus on organizing his skills here. So this time, Chun Zhao came here voluntarily. Chun Zhao's current abilities were very complicated. Bloodline of Gluttony, Blood of Rage, Dark Lava, 32 Clones, Jin Transformation, Dark Assimilation, all techniques return to 1, and the 7 awakened pristine eyeballs embedded in his right arm. The most practical of the 7 pristine eyeballs was Shadow Vision, followed by the Eye of Lightning and the Eye of Power. The Eye of Power was the most direct combat enhancement, because it could multiply the upper limit of Chun Zhao's strength. The Eye of Lightning was an attack method and ability that were 2 levels lower. There was also the ability to control the power of the world. The power of the world could be added to all of Chun Zhao's attacks. It could be considered an additional attribute that could increase a certain amount of attack and destructive power. There was also the sword control technique that had almost been eliminated. Apart from these abilities and bloodlines, Chun Zhao's foundation was his constitution and celestial power. constitution, and celestial power were Chun Zhao's most fundamental things. On the other hand, Chun Zhao's abilities were too complicated. Every one of them was powerful, but many of them were independent abilities. Right now, Chun Zhao was wondering if he could combine all the abilities together. First, the bloodline of gluttony and blood of rage. These two demon king bloodlines were always independent of his human bloodline. How could he completely combine these two bloodlines into his body? No, he had no clue. He had to ask old Zhang. Chun Zhao crawled out of the river map again. He picked up his phone and called Zhang Tianyi. Old Zhang, I've thought about it. I've decided to save your grand disciple and your granddaughter-in-law. Are you touched at all? Zhang Tianyi was a bit stunned when he received Chun Zhao's call. He'd already asked Chun Zhao many times before, but Chun Zhao's attitude was still firm. No meant no. Why did he agree now without any warning? Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 25-21. Why did you agree all of a sudden? I'm not afraid that you'll have to die before me. Can't you be a good person? Hearing this, Zhang Tianyi fumed. I'm here to ask for benefits. Zhang Tianyi knew that Chun Zhao had attacked for his own reasons. It definitely wasn't to save Yanghua, but he really couldn't be sarcastic now. If Chun Zhao slowed down in a fit of anger and waited for Yanghua to die, who would he be able to reason with? What do you want? Is there any way to fuse two or more types of bloodlines? Or was there a cultivation technique? There are many, Zhang Tianyi said. Give me one. I don't have one. Are you messing with me? Chun Zhao said angrily. I'll let your disciple go. Who are you using it for? Or for yourself? For myself. I really don't have a blood-tempering technique, Zhang Tianyi said. Zhang Tianyi said, you can create your own set right now, and it's definitely suitable for you. The blood-tempering techniques circulating in the supernatural world are all created by others. No one situation is the same, so forcibly cultivating someone else's technique might not be the best choice. Create it myself? I don't know how. Simple. First, cultivate a fire elemental spell or a spell and cultivate the heart flame. Then, you have to reach at least the false core realm. You've definitely reached that. False core? Inner core? You can definitely do it with your current realm. And then, use a fire elemental spell or spell to refine the inner core. Then pour your blood into it and let the inner core be refined by the heart flame. This process is basically the same for everyone, but the higher the level of your fire elemental spell or spell, the better. You have to at least cultivate the heart flame, Zhang Tianyi said. Since everyone has the same method, what's different? Of course it's different. Everyone cultivates a different heart flame, Zhang Tianyi said. Zhang Tianyi said, when activating the heart fire, the circulation method is unique. If you use someone else's heart fire method, it can't be said that you will definitely go berserk, but there will be some incompatibility. In other words, the key is still the fire element magic and divine ability, and the heart flame that is cultivated is different, right? There are some details that I don't know. After all, I have never used the blood tempering method. Then give me some fire spells or divine abilities. I'll study them and see what's suitable for me. If you want to cultivate fire spells and divine abilities, you might as well look for Bifla. Is there anyone in this world who is more proficient in fire spells than the fire worship sect? Air. That seems to make sense. I'll hang up first then. Wait. Don't let anything happen to my grand disciple. We'll see if we can make it, Chun Zhao said, unconcerned. Fuck you. Before Zhang Tianyi could finish, Chun Zhao hung up. Bifla. I need a fire spell or divine ability. Can you help me with one? The more advanced, the better. What for? To refine the bloodline. Perfect. We talked about the secret of the Phoenix last time. I've already organized the research data. I'll send it to you now. What does the secret of the Phoenix have to do with the fire spell or divine ability I need? I realize that the secret of the Phoenix's rebirth isn't in the Phoenix itself, but in the Nirvana flame. Mastering the Nirvana flame means mastering the secret of the Phoenix's rebirth. Then Bifla sent all the data he'd researched to Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao took the information that Bifla had researched and returned to the river map. It recorded the process of each of Bifla's experiments in detail, as well as his thoughts. It could be said that it was more detailed and complete than any other cultivation method. It was more like a tutorial that would teach you step by step how to use the Nirvana flame. Chen Zhao took out the phoenix's blood. It was a wooden bucket about 1 meter in diameter and height, filled with the blood. Then he poured in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. The blood would spontaneously combust. After igniting the phoenix's blood, Chen Zhao also jumped into the barrel. This was a Nirvana flame. However, without a body, the Nirvana flame couldn't revive the phoenix. Now, Chen Zhao had to absorb the Nirvana flame into his body and merge it with his immortal power and flesh. However, this was the time to test the body of a cultivator who cultivated the Nirvana flame. His body could endure the heat of the Nirvana flame, but it didn't mean that his body could. The moment Chen Zhao breathed in the Nirvana flame, Chen Zhao felt a terrifying pain in his chest. Chen Zhao howled in pain. The force in his body exploded the bucket. However, the phoenix's blood didn't disperse. Instead, it was completely ignited and surrounded Chen Zhao. Every time Chen Zhao breathed, the flames would seep into his body through his mouth, nose, ears, and even the pores on his skin. The flames started flowing through every meridian and blood vessel in his body. Although the flames of Nirvana made Chen Zhao feel pain, his extremely strong body and dense life force prevented him from dying. By now, Chen Zhao's body was burned beyond recognition. Chen Zhao had never suffered such heavy injuries before. Chen Zhao's mind spun furiously in pain. If this continued, he would die for sure. What should he do? Were they trying to play with him to death? Chen Zhao didn't know how Bifla could withstand it. Chen Zhao thought of Bifla. Bifla mainly cultivated the fire element. His resistance to fire was definitely stronger than Chen Zhao's. But Chen Zhao was stronger. Therefore, Bifla might not suffer any less. Bifla couldn't delay the pain for long. Should he merge the Nirvana flame with his magic power or immortal power? No, the immortal power and the Nirvana flame didn't show any signs of merging. In fact, it didn't affect him at all. The immortal power wasn't the key. Then what was the key? The phoenix controlled the Nirvana flame. It was like an immortal body. But now, the Nirvana flame was burning on Chen Zhao's body. It didn't allow him to be reborn. Instead, he was in so much pain that he wanted to die. What was missing? Suddenly, Chen Zhao thought of a possibility. The Nirvana flame was missing the most important thing, life force. Even if the phoenix was born with a Nirvana flame, how could it be reborn endlessly without life force? Chen Zhao felt like his consciousness was blurring. He could only stake it all on one throw. He injected life force into the Nirvana flame. Just then, the Nirvana flame on Chen Zhao's body suddenly exploded. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 25-22. This time, the intensity of the Nirvana's flame was many times greater than before. The area within a radius of 10 meters was engulfed by the monstrous flame. But now he no longer felt pain. The burning pain inside and outside his body had all disappeared. The charred skin also began to peel off. What surprised Chen Zhao was that this near-death injury actually consumed very little life force. It wasn't even 1% of what it used to be. Chen Zhao finally understood what Bifla meant. The Nirvana flame was the key. He also understood the phoenix's secret. The Nirvana flame could reduce the consumption of life force by 99%, which was equivalent to increasing his life force by 100 times. Therefore, it was almost impossible to kill the undying bird under normal circumstances, unless the process was interrupted. It was just like when Chen Zhao interrupted Red Eagle's Nirvana rebirth. Chen Zhao glanced at the Nirvana flames around him and put them back into his body. This time, Chen Zhao didn't feel any pain. Instead, he felt dissatisfied. Chen Zhao reached out a hand. Nirvana's flame burned on his palm. As he closed his palm, the Nirvana flame also dissipated. But now, Chen Zhao was troubled again. Nirvana's flame could be considered a small success, right? But how could he cultivate and strengthen it? How could he refine the heart fire? Chen Zhao took out a large amount of Phoenix's blood. He ignited it in the same way and inhaled it into his body. Chen Zhao could feel the nirvana flame growing stronger. However, this growth was only in terms of quantity. There was no qualitative change that Chen Zhao felt satisfied with. Chen Zhao tried to channel his immortal power into the nirvana flame. Let's see if there's a reaction this time. Although there hadn't been any reaction before, Chen Zhao felt that it was because there hadn't been any life force injected. So there's no chemistry. The moment the immortal power entered the nirvana flame, the flames turned from red to bright white. As expected, the nirvana flame, life force, and immortal power could produce an even more intense chemical reaction. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and decided to use another method. He would first mix his life force with his immortal energy before throwing it into the nirvana flame. This was the inspiration he got from the process of making some strong fire potions. At this moment, the nirvana flame turned from white to golden. Chen Zhao tried injecting different proportions of life force and immortal power. The nirvana flame was sometimes weak and sometimes strong. Finally, after hundreds of attempts, he finally found the golden ratio. Chen Zhao's heart jumped. He could turn from a physical state to an energy state. Could he turn into a flame state too? Chen Zhao started a new round of attempts. But to his disappointment, he couldn't turn himself into a flame completely. The most he could do was to cover his body with Nirvana's flame. However, even though the Nirvana's flame had been strengthened, it was not as strong as before. However, the heart flame still did not comprehend it. Does it need to be condensed in the heart? It shouldn't be so one-sided. Should I give it a try? Chen Zhao gathered the Nirvana flames in his heart. In an instant, the Nirvana flame replaced his blood and was transported to every corner of his body by his heart. What was this? Was this the heart flame? Chen Zhao was stunned. But when he thought about it carefully, the term heart fire had existed since ancient times. In the eyes of the ancients, the heart was the foundation of a person. Therefore, heart fire should be the literal meaning. It wasn't the fire of the heart or the fire of the soul. After the nirvana flame was transmitted from the heart to every corner of the body, it flowed back into the heart. Over and over again, it went on, growing and multiplying without end. It seemed to have formed its own trajectory. Moreover, every time the nirvana flame circulated in his body, it would increase the power of the nirvana flame by a little. His body also experienced unexpected changes as the nirvana flame spread. His life force didn't decrease because of the nirvana flame. Instead, it was refined, leaving behind pure life force. As for Chen Zhao's celestial power, it gave him an indescribable feeling after being refined by the nirvana flame. This burning feeling even spread to Chen Zhao's small world. As long as one stood around Chen Zhao, they would feel warm. The nirvana flame, life force, and celestial power formed a circle full of life in Chen Zhao's small world. Of course, this circle wouldn't bring people back to life directly, but it would make people feel instinctively comfortable. Chen Zhao didn't think that he would comprehend the heart flame so easily. There were almost no difficulties. Everything happened so naturally. Using the nirvana flame to refine his bloodline. Since everything was ready, Chen Zhao planned to start his original goal. Chen Zhao controlled his essence blood to fuse into the internal alchemy. Then the nirvana flame started refining the internal alchemy together. The yin and yang internal alchemy had been spinning all along. After being refined by the nirvana flame, it spun even faster. Gradually, the yin and yang internal alchemy turned into a vortex, a black hole that greedily absorbed the spiritual qi in the small world. The human bloodline, the blood of rage, and the blood of gluttony were clearly separated. But now, they started mixing together in the vortex. At first, it was hard to tell who was who. The nirvana flame was also sucked into the vortex and fused into the three bloodlines. Chen Zhao closed his eyes. Even he didn't realize that he was floating in the air with his arms open. The small world around him was like a huge network. Golden flames flowed in and out of Chen Zhao's body as the center. In the end, The three bloodlines disappeared along with the burning flames. In the end, the red blood returned. After an unknown period of time, Chun Zhao opened his eyes. He looked at his hands. Dark magma spread out. Just then, a huge head popped out of the dark magma. It was the gluttony behemoth. The gluttony behemoth didn't change much, but it had turned from dark gray to black. Chun Zhao had an idea. The gluttony behemoth's body suddenly collapsed, turning into countless smaller gluttons. Chun Zhao waved his hand in the air again. The smaller gluttony behemoth collapsed again, turning into pure dark magma. Chun Zhao retracted the dark magma. His body didn't change at all, but he immediately felt his body enter the dark assimilation state. Usually, after the dark assimilation state, Chun Zhao's skin would turn black and red. But now, there was no change. This meant that the dark assimilation state was gone, because it had gone from a temporary state to a normal state. Because the blood of rage had truly become a part of Chun Zhao, the blood of gluttony was the same. The first stage of seclusion was successfully completed. The effects were better than Chun Zhao had expected. Chun Zhao felt that he had to enter the second stage of cultivation. He needed to organize and integrate most of his current skills. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 25-23. If fusing bloodlines was internal, then skills were external. If fusing bloodlines was internal, then skills were external. But the integration of skills required a plan first. He already had quite a few skills. What level did the integration have to reach, and whether it was feasible? First of all, since it was integration, the effect had to be better than the original. Otherwise, this kind of integration would be meaningless. Chun Zhao mainly integrated skills this time. Giant Spirit Transformation, Clone, and Spells Return to 1. These 3 plus the Eye of Power were the most direct way for Chun Zhao to increase his combat ability. Among them, Avatar and 10,000 Techniques Return to 1 were 2 completely opposite skills, and there was a clear casting interval between the two. Moreover, the clone had to be activated first to activate Spells Return to 1. This was because the clone was a clone, while Spells Return to 1 was a combination. Therefore, the clone had to be activated first before the combination. Chun Zhao wrote down the methods of the 2 skills and started comparing them. Next was the integration and experimentation. After more than 10 hours, Chun Zhao finally finished the first version. Let's try. Chun Zhao clenches fists. Combine. Bang. 32 avatars fell out in an instant. Failure. The clone couldn't release the modified skill clearly, and the combination couldn't be completed either. The first attempt was a failure. Chun Zhao removed the clone and started the second modification. After a few more hours, the skill modification version 2.0 was finally completed. The second attempt ended in failure. This time, both clone and Spells Return to 1 succeeded, but Spells Return only successfully fused 1 clone into Chun Zhao's body. 3 hours later, skill modification 3.0. 6 hours later, skill modification 4.0. For the 18th time, Chun Zhao had spent around 80 hours in total. This time, there was finally some progress in the reform. Combined. Instantly, countless illusions appeared around Chun Zhao. The illusions merged into Chun Zhao's body. Chun Zhao took a deep breath and waved his arms and legs. That's right, this was the most perfect modification ever. He hadn't found any flaws yet. Chun Zhao destroyed with all his might in this state for 12 hours. The mountain in front of them had been destroyed by Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao was in a good state. He didn't feel any discomfort. Chun Zhao suddenly had a new idea. It was not necessary to fuse all the skills together. If he were to fuse all the skills together, putting aside the fact that it would be too difficult, it was a question of whether he could do it with his current skill level. Moreover, he did not have enough time. He could divide his abilities into different levels. The first level was the Eye of Power's Strength Multiplier. The second level was Mighty Spirit Divinization. The third level could be the Integrated Avatar and 10,000 Techniques Return to 1. However, the most important thing was to give his skill a good name. Of course, he couldn't let himself feel ashamed. After choosing a few hundred names, he finally decided on one. Let's take the last two words of 10,000 techniques, return to one technique. Chun Zhao returned to the ground and sat down. The forest had been destroyed beyond recognition by Chun Zhao. However, the river diagram was full of spiritual qi, and the inner cores left by the old turtle were not far away. It wouldn't be long before this place was filled with vitality again. Chun Zhao calmed down again because he felt that he needed to develop other types of skills. It wasn't the kind of skill that could strengthen one's body, but the way they attacked. Chun Zhao had always felt that his attacks were too simple. Sword kinesis had already been eliminated. Its area of effect and range couldn't compare to dark lava. It was also complicated to use, so it couldn't be as smooth as dark lava. The Holy Light Cannon's power was also average. It was good against enemies a few levels lower than him, but against enemies of the same level or close to his strength, the effect would be much weaker. Moreover, he had to use an angelic crystal every time. It was really useless to Chun Zhao. The Eye of Thunder faced an awkward situation similar to the Holy Light Cannon. Its attack was similar to the Holy Light Cannon, but it was better in terms of attributes. Almost all creatures didn't like lightning attacks. They were even afraid of them. The Holy Light Cannon was very effective against dark and ghoul types, but it was much less effective against other creatures. The power of the world could only add some additional attributes to Chun Zhao's physical attacks. If he used it alone, it wouldn't be able to deal with enemies of the same level. Right now, Chun Zhao's best long-range attack was the shadows of his fists. The shadows of his fists were still lacking in terms of level. Although they were stronger than the previous attacks, they were still weak against enemies of the same level. However, if he wanted to develop an attack that was at the same level, the difficulty was really not an ordinary one. Think about it. Right now, most spells couldn't even get close to Chun Zhao. The few spells that could get close basically only had 10% or 20% of their power left. Even enemies of the same level, like Lilith's attacks, couldn't pose a threat to Chun Zhao. This meant that Chun Zhao wasn't the only one with this problem. Everyone had the same problem. Of course, Chun Zhao's advantage was that he was an enhancer. Even if he didn't have an attack of the same level, he could still defeat everything with pure close-range combat. Moreover, Chun Zhao's defense might be even stronger than his combat power. Nevertheless, Chun Zhao still wanted to improve. He wanted to try and develop an attack of the same level. A beautiful golden flame ignited in Chun Zhao's palm. But after careful thought, Chun Zhao put away the Nirvana flame. Old Turtle had once said that he shouldn't use fancy attacks. This wasn't his style, nor was it his way of doing things. If it was just a beautiful attack, the Nirvana flame was indeed a good choice. Moreover, Chun Zhao believed that the Nirvana flame could indeed create a beautiful attack. But that kind of attack would only be like the Holy Light Cannon, the Eye of the Thunder, or the Power of the World. It would look good, but be useless. But now, Chun Zhao didn't want an attack that only looked good. He had to develop a skill with his best and strongest aspect. A small drop of dark magma gathered in Chun Zhao's palm. The dark magma was like a superfluid. It wasn't sticky at all. It kept rolling in Chun Zhao's palm. Chun Zhao looked at the dark magma and fell into deep thought. The dark magma kept forming all kinds of strange shapes in Chun Zhao's palm. Chun Zhao seemed a bit bored. He was never a patient person. This kind of seclusion, especially this kind of sitting, had almost exhausted Chun Zhao's patience. Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 25-24. He suddenly stood up and left the river map. He really wasn't suited for seclusion in such an environment. At the very least, he had some ideas or clues before this. Chun Zhao didn't find it boring. But now, he had no idea how to develop a new skill. Chun Zhao looked at the time. More than 100 hours had passed in the river map. It had only been less than 10 minutes outside. He wanted to watch some TV dramas and find some inspiration. Chun Zhao took a large number of DVDs and entered the river map to kill time. However, after watching European and American movies for a long time, Chun Zhao felt rather disappointed. Forget it. Western movies and TV dramas involve the supernatural. The moves, routines, and attacking methods were all quite ordinary. There wasn't much to look at, nor could it give him any inspiration. It was better to look at Chinese or Japanese comics. Perhaps it was because of cultural resonance. Both of them had many things that Chen Zhao could learn from or find new. In fact, some of the attacks that Chen Zhao had developed in the past have been inspired by Chinese and Japanese comics. Regardless of whether it was Chinese or Japanese comics, as long as it wasn't based in reality, there would be a lot of cool skills. But after looking for a long time, he didn't see anyone in the same situation as him. He also did not see any skills that were suitable for him to develop. Chen Zhao had watched at least 2,000 episodes, but he wasn't inspired at all. This made Chen Zhao very unhappy. Chen Zhao exited the river map again. Holding the remote control, he watched a Chinese animation program. Just then, he saw a piece of news. A non-famous animation studio in the country had closed down, and the boss of the studio was currently looking to acquire it. The boss of this animation studio was also a mangaka. He had more than 10 painters under him and had published a few standalone books. Unfortunately, they did not achieve the desired effect. Chen Zhao picked up the phone. "Hey, Alex, help me. I want to buy a studio." When Alex heard that Chen Zhao wanted to buy a Chinese animation studio, she was speechless. But Chen Zhao was her boss. Who knew what the boss was thinking? Does Chen Zhao want to support Chinese animation? Did he have such great sentiments? At this moment, Zhang Ting was packing up the things in the studio. The dozen or so artists in the studio were also in low spirits. Like Zhang Ting, they joined Dream Studios with the dream of revitalizing China's animation industry. But reality slapped them hard in the face. The domestic market was too chaotic. They wrote a comic together and released 3 standalone books. In the end, the best-selling first episode only sold 11,000 copies, and the sales of the second and third episodes fell to the bottom. Zhang Ting had thought of looking for an animated version. She wanted to rely on an animated version to gain attention and increase the sales of the single volume. But she went to almost all the companies she could contact. The answers she received were all disappointing. In the past 2.5 years, she had invested about 1.5 million renminbi. However, the studio did not improve until her funds could not keep up. However, she hoped that these people who had the same dream as her would have a good ending. At least let them keep their jobs. Therefore, she hoped that someone would buy the studio. Moreover, she was willing to buy it symbolically for 1 yuan. But still, no one was interested in her studio. None of them were famous, and none of them had valuable IP. To put it bluntly, this was a shell studio. At this moment, Zhang Ting's phone rang. "Hello, are you Miss Zhang Ting?" "Yes, I am. May I know who you are?" "I'm from Baixing Law Firm. My surname is Wu." "Hello, Lawyer Wu. What can I do for you?" Zhang Ting swallowed her saliva. It couldn't be that there was trouble, right? As a Chinese, when hearing the identity of a lawyer, the first reaction was almost the same. Was there trouble coming to the door? It's like this. I received an agency task from a foreign law firm. The other party wants to buy your studio, and the other party is very anxious. So, I want to know the price of your studio. Is it a foreigner who wants to buy my studio? Zhang Ting asked in surprise. I don't know who the buyer is, but this agency task was sent from abroad. I guess the investor should be a foreigner. I have stated the purchase conditions on the company's official website. As long as the investor is willing to keep the studio and the artists, I am willing to sell it for 1 yuan. All the copyrights of the studio's only work will also belong to the investor, Zhang Ting said. The buyer also made a request. All the main creators must stay, and the staff structure of the studio should not be changed as much as possible, especially the creative director, Lawyer Wu said. When Zhang Ting heard this request, she was a little surprised. However, the other party's request seemed to meet her requirements. The only work of our studio is the result of everyone's brainstorming. Everyone is the main creator, and we don't have a creative director. I need to report your situation to them. Okay, I'll wait for your news. After about 10 minutes, Lawyer Wu called again. Miss Zhang, the investor wants to video call you. Is it convenient for you now? Investor? Is it a foreigner? It's a foreign woman who is talking to me, but I'm not sure if it's the investor. Okay, what communication software do they need? QQ. Air. Do foreigners also use QQ? I don't know. Zhang Ting was a little worried that it might be a scam. After all, the other party would not lose money if they bought it for 1 yuan. Although the work was not worth much, no one could guarantee that the other party was not really sure of money. According to Lawyer Wu's request, after adding the other party's QQ, Zhang Ting immediately received a video call request. Hello, Miss Zhang. Zhang Ting saw that the person in the video was a Chinese man who spoke fluent Chinese. I want to know, how much does it cost to maintain your studio for a year? This. In the past 2 years, I invested about 1.5 million yuan, but this is only the basic maintenance, Zhang Ting said. Because it's not even 200,000 US dollars a year, right? Sir, are you abroad? Yes, I'm a loyal fan of the warrior that you released, so I plan to buy your studio. I hope that your studio will continue to complete this work. As long as you agree, I will arrange for a lawyer to go over. Of course, I will also bring your operating expenses for the next quarter. Chapter 25. Zhang Ting was a bit stunned. She really didn't expect that Chan Zhao would buy their studio just because he liked that lousy work. Sir, are you serious? Yes, as long as you sign the contract. The money will be transferred to your account. However, my request, as my lawyer has already discussed with you, I want all the main cast members to stay. I can raise their salaries by 20%, and I can also help make up for the benefits that you deserve. What about me? Zhang Ting asked. Are you also the main creator of this work? I'm the creator of the studio. I'm also a cartoonist. The title of the work is under my name. Then, Ms. Zhang, are you willing to stay? I can keep 20% of the studio's shares. Of course, the salary will be extra. I'm willing. I don't need a salary. Sir, boss, I want to ask you a question. Ms. Zhang, please. Do you want to animate the warrior? Sure, no problem. How much do you think it will cost? I think it will only cost 3 million for the first season with 12 episodes. In RMB? Yes. Okay, animate it then. If you have other ideas, you can do them too. I quite like Chinese comics. My dream is to revitalize them. Zhang Ting suddenly felt like they were on the same page. Oh, can you gather all the main creators in the studio? I want to know all of them, Chen Zhao said. Of course, no problem. Zhang Ting suppressed her excitement and gathered everyone in the studio. Then she introduced everyone in the studio to Chen Zhao. Hello, everyone, Chen Zhao said. I should be a new boss soon, but I'm overseas now and can't go back. After we finish the contract, Ms. Zhang will continue to be in charge of everything. Hello, boss. You're all cartoonists. You all have wild ideas. I want to ask you a question. Is it convenient for you now? Yes, boss. Go ahead. This question is a bit weird. Don't laugh at me. Boss, go ahead. It's like this. I imagine there's such a person. I'll call him X. He's a person who has the strength of 1 billion tons. He can also control a black liquid substance. At the same time, he has a domain of about 1,000 meters. This domain can help this person recover his strength and has a certain ability to control airflow within this range. Chen Zhao briefly explained his abilities. Now, this person wants to use his current abilities to develop a move. Do you have any ideas? That's right. That's right. The people in front of the video looked at each other. He looked at Chen Zhao with a strange expression. This guy was also a nerd. Only an otaku would ask such a chinibi question. However, they had a natural affinity for otakus. Seismic waves. A young man wearing a thick pair of glasses and a checkered shirt said. X punches the ground with both fists. The tremendous force passes through the ground and forms a shock wave that attacks the enemy, causing great destruction. This won't do. I need a directional skill. This kind of seismic wave is an area of effect attack. Moreover, according to the laws of physics, when the force hits the ground, the force will quickly spread through the ground. The destructive power may seem great, but if I'm facing an enemy of the same level, this kind of attack will be meaningless. Everyone thought that Chen Zhao just wanted to discuss imaginary things with them. They didn't think that Chen Zhao would be so serious and directly correct the theoretical deviation they mentioned. Sir, boss, We're talking about an imaginary person, right? Yes. Then we shouldn't be bothered by the physical deviation in reality. Even though it's an imaginary person, I still hope that you can let go of your thoughts and still follow the laws of physics. Chun Zhao was an enhancer, so his main attacks still had to follow the laws of physics. Seeing Chun Zhao's determined attitude in the video, everyone looked at each other speechlessly. So, our suggestion needs to follow the laws of physics under the X ability you mentioned, right? Zhang Ting asked. Yes. Zhang Ting thought for a moment and said, I thought of a skill. I'll call it Neutron Star. Neutron Star? Chun Zhao said. The name sounds like something out of science fiction. X controls the air and gathers it in his palms. Then, he uses a huge force to compress the air continuously. During this process, he needs to inject air continuously to ensure that the compressed ball has enough mass. He also needs to add liquid during this process to ensure that the compressed air is solid. The black liquid that X has is a good molding material. According to the calculation of 1 megapascal is equivalent to 10 kilograms, X can create about 200 billion megapascal pressure. The density of the solid air will also reach 1 billion tons. A ball the size of a fist will have a mass of 1 billion tons. It'll be millions of times harder than a diamond. If you use it to smash an enemy, they'll basically die from just one hit. Plus, if you fly it to the enemy and extract the black liquid, the structure of the ball will instantly collapse. 1 billion tons of air will be released instantly, causing a strong vibration in the air. Of course, if X can further shrink the compressed volume, the power will increase as well, Zhang Ting added. Zhang Ting added, although it hasn't reached the true density of a neutron star, it can reach 1% of a neutron star's density. Of course, you can also increase the setting of strength X a little. That way, it will be more in line with the name neutron star. Then you can increase it by 100,000 times and turn the neutron star into a black hole, another artist said. The more Chun Zhao listened, the more excited he became. It seemed like Zhang Ting's plan was feasible. It wasn't just a fantasy. Zhang Ting also gave a physical argument and the process of operation. I'm very satisfied with your answers, Chun Zhao said. I especially admire Miss Zhang's imagination. Thank you for working for me. Boss, do you have any plans for the studio's future? It'll be fine as long as you don't lose money in 3 years. I won't interfere with your work and operations. Just give me a copy of your financial report every quarter. Zhang Ting was also very satisfied. After all, investors these days basically wanted to earn back their capital in half a year, get listed in 3 years, and multiply 10 times in 5 years. They also liked laymen to command professionals. They always talked about following the market. Very few people were like Chun Zhao, only investing money and not doing anything. Chapter 25-26. After Chun Zhao ended the video call, Zhang Ting's mood suddenly changed. Was he messing with them? Something didn't feel right. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Outside the open door stood a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes. Hello, may I ask who is Ms. Zhang Ting? I am. Who are you? Hello, I called you earlier. I'm Wu Chang. Your lawyer, Wu? Zhang Ting asked in surprise. That's me. Wu Chang nodded. If it's convenient, can we discuss the acquisition of the studio now? The signing process was very smooth. There was basically no conflict of interest between the two parties. After the signing, the first $500,000 of the acquisition fee and this year's operating budget were transferred to her account. Zhang Ting finally believed that the person wasn't joking with her. Her mind was a bit messed up. Would someone really buy the studio for a comic? Then spend a few $100,000 to buy the studio? In reality, Chun Zhao had never thought about revitalizing the studio. Rather than buying the studio, it was more like buying the studio's creators. He could use their imaginations to help him develop new skills when he needed them. Even if they had a Manchu Han Imperial feast every day, they wouldn't make $1 million a year. To Chun Zhao, this was a very good deal. Chun Zhao returned to the river diagram and tried to use the neutron star. At room temperature, air couldn't be compressed into a solid state. So, he had to add other substances. Dark lava was clearly a good choice. Chun Zhao could control dark lava. It was the best choice as the glue for the neutron star. Chun Zhao crossed his palms, but he didn't put them together. Then he poured the air in the territory into his palms. However, the process wasn't as fast as expected. Chun Zhao's territory covered a sphere of about 1 square kilometer. Based on the volume of the sphere, it would be 294,375,000 cubic meters. Each cubic meter of air weighed 129 kilograms, so the weight of the air in the territory was about 380,000 tons. To compress a neutron star, even if he absorbed 380,000 tons of air in 1 second, it would take more than 10 minutes. But in reality, Chun Zhao couldn't compress the air in the territory into a sphere in 1 second. Thinking of this, Chun Zhao couldn't help but feel disappointed. But he still finished a neutron star. It took him almost an hour. It was much slower than he had expected. Chun Zhao felt the weight in his hand. It was a black and red sphere that weighed close to 300 million tons. Furthermore, the structure of the neutron star was very stable under the maintenance of the dark magma. Chun Zhao took a deep breath and leaned back heavily. He swung his right arm back as far as he could and threw the neutron star. In an instant, a chasm formed on the ground along the way. Neutron star flew tens of thousands of meters in an instant. Its speed was so fast that it could be seen in the blink of an eye. When he flew to the top of a mountain, Chun Zhao controlled the dark magma to leave. The dark magma immediately left the neutron star, and the neutron star immediately collapsed. Millions of tons of air were released in an instant. In an instant, the air vibrated. The top of the mountain disappeared in an instant. It was not the process of being smashed into pieces. It was disintegration. The mountaintop was directly disintegrated. The range was only a few dozen meters. However, its power definitely surpassed any modern weapon in this world. Chun Zhao panted slightly. To him, this was indeed a big move. However, the charging time for this ultimate skill was a huge problem. His enemies definitely wouldn't give him such a long time to charge up. An hour. No matter how chivalrous the enemy was, they would not give Chun Zhao an hour to charge. No, he had to discuss with Zhang Ting and the others. Hello, Ms. Zhang. I'm Chun Zhao, your boss. Hello, Mr. Chun. What can I do for you? Is it convenient for a video call? Yes. Zhang Ting did not dare to treat Chun Zhao as a liar anymore. After the video call was connected, Chun Zhao's first words were, I hope the studio can expand and find 100 more people to create more outstanding works. Mr. Chun, isn't that too risky? Our studio doesn't have a single successful work yet. It's too risky to expand now. Zhang Ting knew the domestic animation market. It was not completely non-existent, but it was still very weak. It doesn't matter if we lose a few million every year, Chun Zhao said seriously. I just like talking to people with wild imaginations like you. Do you mind if I talk to you again? Not at all. I analyzed the ultimate move you designed for X neutron star, Chun Zhao said. According to my calculations, the move looks powerful, but it takes too long to charge. Can I make it in advance and carry it with me? Zhang Ting asked. No, it's too heavy, Chun Zhao said. Zhang Ting found Chun Zhao's answer funny. Her boss's answer sounded like he had experienced it himself. Chun Zhao had also thought about putting it in his spatial ring. However, once it was placed in the space ring, the dark lava would lose control. The neutron star would explode instantly. Then, Chun Zhao's spatial ring would collapse. All of you, brainstorm and help me think of a better move. If the move you think of is to my liking, you can produce as many episodes of the anime as you want this year. Zhang Ting and the other artists all gaped at Chun Zhao in shock. Her boss seemed to be really unreliable. Even if he had money, he could not spend it like this. Boss, what if I want to make a movie? Up to you. Money isn't a problem. Boss, what do you do? Zhang Ting was a bit scared. Was this guy laundering money? I sell alcohol, Chun Zhao said. Don't worry. My money comes clean. Can we discuss it? Sure, but be quick. Zhang Ting and the others also had a headache. Why did they have a boss like this? It was fine if he just gave them pointers. Why did he have to create a person like X? Why do they have to give X a corresponding skill? Boss, other than air, can X control other things in his domain? You want X to compress the neutron star with something else? Yes. If it's something else, it can definitely compress the neutron star faster. 9 Heaven's Divine King. Chapter 25-27. Chen Zhao shook his head. No, if I use earth or water, the structure is too stable. In fact, when hundreds of millions of tons of matter were squeezed into a sphere, whether it was solid, liquid, or gas, the effect was almost the same. However, it was very different for Chen Zhao, because he could control the explosion of the gas. He couldn't control earth or water as he wished. He could only use it to smash people. If he did that, the neutron star would lose its purpose. The destructive power of the gaseous neutron star in the river diagram was still fresh in Chen Zhao's memory. The range of 50 meters was basically the neutron star's absolute destructive range. Matter or enemies within 50 meters wouldn't be destroyed. Instead, they would be disintegrated by the shock of the air. Zhang Ting and the others had a headache. Why did they have a boss like this? Yet, they couldn't ignore the benefits that the boss promised. He could turn their work into an animated movie. For any Chinese comics worker, this was the highest request. Boss, can X compress the air in his domain normally and then compress it a second time, when needed? A short and fat man with glasses asked. Huh? Chen Zhao's heart jumped. There seemed to be room for manipulation. No. Zhang Ting suddenly raised an objection. In terms of settings, X still has the life of a normal person. But if you compress hundreds of millions of tons of air into an area of 1 square kilometer, let's not talk about whether X can do it or whether he can maintain it for a long time. At the very least, this will greatly affect X's normal life. Compressing hundreds of millions of tons of air into an area of 1 square kilometer around X is equivalent to increasing the density of the air by 1,000 times. With such a huge density, other than X himself, anyone who enters this area will have their lungs burst. Buildings and objects will also collapse. But for an enemy of the same level as X, this kind of damage is obviously not enough. Chen Zhao's heart jumped. This move can't be used as a killing move, but it's very destructive. It's a good move. Think about it. If someone stood in Chen Zhao's domain, Chen Zhao didn't even need to move. He just needed to increase the density of the air in the domain, and he'd be able to cause damage. It was a secret move with shocking effects. Also, during regular battles, the enemy's attacks wouldn't even be able to pass through Chen Zhao's domain. I'll remember this move. Given name. Dragon's Might, the short and fat man with glasses said. No, this name is very low, and it doesn't match the characteristics of this move at all. Then let's just call it atmospheric pressure, the short and fat man in glasses said again. Okay, the prize is $10,000. Holy shit, is this even possible? Everyone looked at their boss. Wasn't he being a little too generous? The short and fat man with glasses was overjoyed. Thank you, boss. Come. Everyone, speak up. Zhang Ting's heart skipped a beat. Boss, how fast is the speed set by X? Mach 200 max, then can X fly? Yes. Then, if X increases the air density in the domain by 1,000 times, can X still maintain the speed of Mach 200? This? I don't think so. Maybe only a dozen Mach. Then I'll upgrade it on the basis of atmospheric pressure, Zhang Ting said. After gathering a huge amount of air density, X will fly to a high altitude and hit the enemy at the fastest speed. This power is comparable to a nuclear bomb. What's the difference between that and a neutron star impact? It's different. Neutron stars are denser, but the contact area is too small. This kind of impact will only cause penetrative damage. Even if you hit the ground with a neutron star, there won't be too big of a shockwave. However, atmospheric pressure is different. It's not as dense as a neutron star. Plus, with the contact area of 1 square kilometer, it's basically like a falling meteor. Chen Zhao touched his chin and nodded. Yes, this skill is not bad. Given name, let's call it Meteor. I'll reward you $50,000. In the eyes of Zhang Ting and the others, Chen Zhao was just a nouveau riche. He was stupid and rich. If you think of any interesting or awesome skills, contact me at any time. This is my phone number. Also, if you want to make a movie, make a schedule and budget report. Chen Zhao could already hear the car outside. Fei should be back. Chen Zhao ended the video call. Soon, the kids came home too. At night, Chen Zhao made some calculations. He planned to try out Meteor on the sea. From Zhang Ting's description and analysis, Meteor wasn't just powerful. It also had a large range. Chen Zhao didn't want to try it in the river map. He didn't want to mess up the spiritual qi in the river map. Chen Zhao flew above the sea, thousands of kilometers away from the coastline. Chen Zhao estimated the height. It was about 30,000 meters. He activated all 3 levels of the primordial regression technique. Chen Zhao started accumulating power again. This time, it was more difficult than Neutron Star. This was because when Neutron Star accumulated power, he compressed the air between his palms. Chen Zhao could create 200 billion pascals of atmospheric pressure with his palms. But Chen Zhao's domain couldn't create such a huge pressure. In fact, it was a huge difference. Therefore, it was still difficult to increase the density of the air in the domain by 1,000 times. Of course, he didn't need that much pressure to increase the density of the air by 1,000 times. Under Chen Zhao's control, the density of the air in the domain increased. Chen Zhao didn't just need to absorb the air outside the domain. He also needed to prevent the air from leaking out. Chen Zhao also realized that the time needed to accumulate power was even longer than Neutron Star. Chen Zhao sighed. It seemed that killing moves weren't so easy to develop. After 2 whole hours, Chen Zhao finally felt that the pressure in the domain had reached its limit. Chen Zhao suddenly fell down, but he couldn't keep up at all. The air resistance was too strong. He had to rely on Earth's gravity to go down. Chen Zhao turned himself into energy form, and his speed increased instantly. But he couldn't reach the speed he wanted. While he was falling faster and faster. The edge of the domain rubbed against the surrounding air, turning bright red. When he was close to sea level, his speed was close to Mach 10. The surface of the sea was instantly penetrated. Chen Zhao's domain touched the bottom of the sea. The mud layer at the bottom of the sea was swept away and then hit the land. Boom! In an instant, a 1,000-meter wave rose on the surface of the sea. The terrifying wave spread in all directions. Chen Zhao blasted a 1,000-meter crater out of the land at the bottom of the sea. The wave crashed into the nearby coastline. Of course, after spreading for hundreds of kilometers, the wave was only 100 meters tall. When it reached the west coast, it was only a few dozen meters tall. Chapter 25-28. On his way home, Chen Zhao finally realized how big of a disaster he'd created. The LA coastline had been destroyed by the huge wave. Thankfully, it was late at night, and not many people were at the coastline. Nevertheless, it still caused huge losses. Chen Zhao had to admit that the attack's destructive power had indeed exceeded his expectations. Even Zhang Ting, the initiator, probably didn't expect it. It wasn't just comparable to a nuclear bomb. It was probably comparable to a hydrogen bomb. However, the difficulty of using the attack was also beyond his expectations. Releasing a meteorite was even more difficult than releasing a neutron star. It seemed that this attack could only be used under special circumstances. The next day, the media reported about the tsunami from the previous night. At the same time, even the Department of Defense and NASA came out to explain that there were 7 meteorites. They said that a large meteorite didn't burn up after entering the atmosphere. Instead, it fell into the ocean. However, the damage was much smaller than they'd expected. According to the pictures they'd seen from the satellite last night, the meteorite should be about 1 kilometer. The meteorite should be a meteorite about 1 kilometer wide. If it fell to the ground, it could destroy the entire west coast. In reality, the damage was much smaller than they'd imagined. Actually, from a normal perspective, if a 1-kilometer meteorite fell, it would indeed cause a disaster as the scientists had predicted. However, they didn't know that it was a gaseous meteorite. Its mass was much smaller than they'd estimated. However, after that collision, Chun Zhao felt extremely comfortable. It felt like all the bones in his body had opened up. If he wasn't afraid that it would be too bad, Chun Zhao would even want to come here every day. However, after the collision last night and the terrifying destructive power of Eternal, Chun Zhao didn't dare to do anything in the river map anymore. He also didn't dare to do it in front of his house. After all, the destructive power could directly turn Mirror Lake Manor into ashes. Even Mountain Town would probably be flattened. Chun Zhao didn't waste a single moment in these 2 days. He basically went to the river map, where he would find time to video chat with Zhang Ting and the others. He also promised that if they could think of a skill that he was satisfied with, he would give them a huge sum of money. Unfortunately, no one could think of a skill that he was satisfied with yet. The third day, Mr. Chun, when can you reach the port? Traffic. Wait. Chun Zhao was indeed stuck in traffic. Morning was the rush hour. It was the same in every country. When Chun Zhao reached the port, it was already 10 o'clock. Mr. Chun, this way, Aqualati Geisley waved. Chun Zhao walked up unhurriedly. Why are you so slow? Aqualati Geisley wasn't dressed as casually as that day, but it wasn't much better, just a shirt and a casually matched jacket. I brought you breakfast. Do you want some? Chun Zhao tossed a bag to Aqualati Geisley. Inside was a carton of milk and a sandwich. Aqualati Geisley was still unhappy, but he still accepted Chun Zhao's breakfast. Just then, 2 people disembarked from the dock ship in front. The leader was a beautiful woman who looked to be in her 30s. Her slightly messy hair was pressed under her hat, and she wore a gray work uniform. Are you the one who wasted our time and caused us to miss our sailing time? Chun Zhao turned to leave. Seeing this, Aqualati Geisley hurriedly pulled him back. Then he looked at the woman. Professor Samantha, we didn't spend money to go out to sea to listen to your lecture. I also said that if you want to follow our research ship out to sea, you have to listen to me once you're on my ship. But my friend and I haven't gotten on the ship yet, Aqualati Geisley argued. Don't play word games with me. My research ship isn't for you to play with. Professor Samantha, if you don't like it, you can refund our money. Aqualati Geisley wasn't afraid of Samantha not compromising because he knew that Samantha had already spent more than half the money on the first day he'd sponsored them. Exasperated, Samantha turned to leave. The crew immediately followed him. However, when the crew looked at Chun Zhao and Aqualati Geisley, they were clearly unhappy. Mr. Chun, let's get on the ship. Aqualati Geisley looked at Chun Zhao with a bitter smile. They hadn't even gotten on the ship and already had such a big conflict with the crew. Chun Zhao hoped that there wouldn't be any more conflicts on the way. That woman's temper is too bad, Chun Zhao said, annoyed. Annoyed, Chun Zhao said, I could have just spent some money to get this ship. Why do I have to be angry at her? You think I don't want to? Aqualati Geisley said helplessly. But during my investigation these 2 days, I realized that the mark isn't on the ship, but on Professor Samantha. Chun Zhao frowned. Is there anything special about the mark? I didn't find anything special about that woman. Just then, Samantha stood on the deck and roared. Are you getting on or not? If not, scram. Chun Zhao pursed his lips. In the end, he still boarded the ship. The research ship hurried out to sea. This was a research ship with a displacement of 14,000 tons. It had a complete range of functional equipment, and there was even a small submarine hanging on the jib. Such a research ship was expensive, but its maintenance, warranty, and supplies were also very shocking. It could operate for 3 months at sea each time, and it would cost a few $1 million to resupply each time. Normal people might not be able to sustain such a huge expenditure. Usually, research ships were under the names of large companies or universities and relied on them for funding. However, Samantha's research ship didn't seem to be under anyone else's name. It seemed to be her own. Chun Zhao dragged a chair and sat on the second deck. He faced the sea breeze and enjoyed his coffee. By then, the crew of the research ship had already started working. At this time, Aqualati Geisley also came up. We have to go a long way from the west coast to Bermuda. It won't take long. There's a mark on Samantha. Leviathan at Baron Tegmis will send his men to pick her up soon. Why does that woman work for a company? Chun Zhao asked. She doesn't work for anyone. She was originally a rich second generation, and she was a lecturer at a famous university. But 6 years ago, her father disappeared at sea, and her father's property was confiscated by the bank, leaving her only this research ship. From then on, she gave up her job and wanted to find the reason for her father's disappearance. But she didn't have enough money, so she kept looking for sponsors. Chapter 25-29. Over the past few years, Ximena has gone out to sea a few times, but she hasn't made any progress in her research. Instead, she's focused on finding clues about her father's disappearance. So, after going back and forth a few times, no one is willing to sponsor her research anymore. And then you found her? Actually, she came to me a long time ago, wanting to get a sponsorship from me, but I didn't agree, Aquilati said. It wasn't until half a month ago that I found the mark of Leviathan aberrantegmus on her body, so I deduced that she was targeted by Leviathan aberrantegmus. They don't look like researchers. Chun Zhao pointed at a few big guys who were bare-chested and bare-chested. They were operating the machines on the deck. Their chest muscles were even bigger than a woman's. Chun Zhao looked like a little chick standing before them. Temporary crew, Aquilati said. There are always such temporary crew members of the dock. When someone's ship is about to go to sea and lacks crew members, they will come to apply. Of course, they have rich work experience and can adapt to most jobs at sea, said Aquilati Gasly. Including illegal jobs? Yes, including. Aquilati deftly nodded. They probably acted as temporary pirates. As a great North Sea demon, Aquilati had spent half of his life in the water. Therefore, he probably had more knowledge about the sea than anyone else in the world. Does our beautiful captain know who they are? It's not Ximena's first time out to sea. How does she not know? Aquilati said disapprovingly. Also, when she went out to sea for the first time, she did a few jobs without any sponsorship. I think she's been corrupted since her first time out. She doesn't think we're two big fish, right? I hope she won't do something so unwise, Aquilati said hypocritically. After all, I know her father. Miss, those two are big fish, right? Huperi glanced at Chun Zhao and Aquilati Gasly on the second deck. I don't know about that Asian, but that Aquilati Gasly is not a good person. She lowered her voice. I knew him when my father was still alive. But my father told me that if I inherited the family business, I shouldn't be enemies with Aquilati Gisli, especially at sea. No matter how powerful he is, he's still on our ship. At this time, he is just a piece of meat on the chopping board. If you want him to live, he will live. If you want him to die, he will die. What can he do? I've looked for him a few times in the past, hoping that he would sponsor me to go out to sea, but he always rejected me. This time, he directly agreed and even asked me to take him out to sea. Don't you think this is very strange? There's no way he doesn't know what I'm up to. Do you really think someone like him would jump into a trap? Maybe he's senile. Don't take others for fools, Ximena warned. But they're on our ship. It's not good for us to do business. Let them stay on the ship for a few days. Then we'll find an excuse to release them at the nearest port. Aquilati Gisli laughed and pulled the fishing rod hard. Dozens of meters away, a 200-kilogram yellowfin tuna jumped out of the sea. That yellowfin tuna was at least 2 meters long. Its body was perfectly round, and its strength was quite great. Chun, you lost. In 2 days, Aquilati Gisli and Chun Zhao had become familiar. He had also changed his way of addressing Chun from Mr. Chun. Chun Zhao pursed his lips. No, I didn't lose. I'm a great North Sea demon. So what? Chun Zhao said, unconvinced. No matter what, I won. There are only a few minutes left until the 2 hours we agreed on. As long as you haven't pulled it up, you haven't won. You don't think I'm so rotten that I can't even pull a small fish up, do you? Chun Zhao had a smile on his face. Aquilati Gisli was shocked. He suddenly staggered 2 steps back. The fishing line connecting his fishing rod had snapped. It was his power to control water that had cut the fishing line. At the same time, Chun Zhao controlled the escaping yellowfin tuna and hooked it onto his hook. Aquilati Gisli's face froze. He didn't expect Chun Zhao to do this. Looks like I won. It was finally Chun Zhao's turn to provoke him. I'll say the same thing back to you. It's too early to be happy. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt a huge figure in the sea charging toward the yellowfin tuna. Chen Zhao's expression changed drastically as he shouted, "Scram!" At the same time, Chen Zhao controlled the water, wanting to chase the big guy away. But then, he felt another power in the water. It was exactly the same as his. It was fighting with him for control. Chen Zhao turned his head in surprise and looked at Aqualati Gisli. But thinking about it carefully, it made sense. Aqualati Gisli was a great North Sea demon. Wasn't it normal for him to have the power to control water? Aqualati Gisli also glanced at Chen Zhao. He'd heard from Vincent that Chen Zhao had the power to control water, but he didn't take it to heart at the time. After all, he was quite confident in his own power. But now that he tested Chen Zhao, he realized that Chen Zhao's control of water was no weaker than his. Just as Chen Zhao and Aqualati Gisli were fighting for control of the water, the big guy had already bitten the yellowfin tuna in half. It was an 8-meter-long great white shark. It was definitely the king of the sea. "Looks like neither of us won," Aqualati Gisli said, chuckling. Chen Zhao pursed his lips and pulled the yellowfin tuna's head up. "Fish head stew tonight. Do you want to compete again?" "What? Compare the control of water," Aqualati Gisli said. "How? We can't just fight, right?" "No need to fight. We'll use water to control the ship's course. You make the ship turn left, and I'll make it turn right. Let's see who the ship leans more toward in the end." Chen Zhao thought about it and nodded. "Sure. Do you want to bet?" Chapter 25:30. "Miss, this ship's waves are a bit big." Inside the cockpit, Hepburn was controlling the helm, but he seemed to have trouble controlling it. Samina was also suspicious. "How can there be such big waves in this area?" "Wait, is there going to be a storm? Is there any feedback from the radar?" "No, and the wind vane is normal. Southeast wind, 12 meters per second." Hepburn's face was full of confusion. "But the direction of the waves is really weird. It's completely different from a wind." It was getting harder and harder for Hepburn to control the helm. Just then, the ship shook violently. Unexpectedly, Headley was sent tumbling away. The rudder also began to spin randomly. At the same time, the ship started swaying from side to side. Samita went up to pull the helm, but he couldn't do so at all. Just then, huge waves rose on both sides of the bow, slapping against the ship. Strangely, the waves weren't slapping in one direction. Instead, they slapped from the left and right sides of the ship. The ship swayed even more violently. Chen Zhao and Aqualati Gisli stood on the second deck. "We can't continue. If we do, we'll capsize the ship." Aqualati Gisli was speechless at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao's control of water wasn't weaker than his, but in terms of precision, Chen Zhao's control was much worse. Originally, Aqualati Gisli wanted to compete with Chen Zhao in terms of water control using a gentler method. But Chen Zhao didn't plan to do that at all. The power he used was frighteningly strong. This kind of power was meaningless on the battlefield, but it was used on the research ship. If he didn't try his best to maintain it, the ship would probably be capsized. Chen Zhao also felt that he couldn't continue. He might as well give up on the competition. Chen Zhao could also feel that his control of water couldn't be compared to Aqualati Gisli at all. But in terms of strength, Chen Zhao wouldn't lose to him either. However, Chen Zhao felt that it was a pity that he didn't win the bet. This was because they were betting on people. Aqualati Guthrie had used Vincent as a wager. If Chen Zhao won, he could take her away. If Aqualati Gasly won, Chen Zhao would transfer his contract with Syndicate to Aqualati Gasly. It was actually quite a pity for Aqualati Gasly. He knew more or less about the feud between the Syndicate and Tiger. Now, Tiger was killed by Chen Zhao. Xian Jia was considered one of the best athletes in the boxing world, and even in the sports world. There was no need to mention his commercial value. If he could get Sin to work for him, it would greatly reduce the pressure on his finances. Although Aqualati Gisli's family business was huge, However, it also consumed a lot of money. There were places to spend money. In addition to the previous losses, Some of his investments were also hit by a cold wave. As for Chun Zhao and Vincent, they didn't have any needs. She just wanted to get her hands on him. When Vincent faced Chun Zhao, he was very arrogant. Therefore, Chun Zhao really wanted to teach him a good lesson after he got it, to teach him how to behave. Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gaslight were both irresponsible people. They didn't blame themselves or compensate for the trouble they and the crew caused. Miss, there's a ship ahead. It looks like we're in the same line. Huh? In the same line? Samantha's expression changed. Do you know where it came from? The ship is very big and seems to have been modified from a cruise ship. I've never heard of anyone modifying a cruise ship into a pirate ship, Her Polly said seriously. Heppley said solemnly, this area should be Guret's territory, but this ship definitely doesn't belong to Guret. At the same time, Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gaslight, who were standing on the second deck, also saw the cruise ship. Fuck, isn't that mine? Aqualati Gaslight stared at the ship with wide eyes. He stared for a long time and finally confirmed that the ship was his. However, the ship should be in Chun Zhao's hands now. Why would it appear here now? Aqualati Gaslight couldn't help but turn to Chun Zhao. Did you call it here? No, I sold it to a friend, Chun Zhao said. When he destroyed Aqualati Gaslight's marine laboratory, the ship had naturally become his spoils of war. However, the ship was too old. It had probably been built for more than 50 years. Many of the equipment was old beyond recognition. In addition, Chun Zhao had damaged many places. If he wanted to repair it, it would cost at least tens of millions of dollars. If he wanted to change the equipment and design, it would cost a few thousand more. So, Chun Zhao contacted Guret directly and asked if she wanted it. Guret was very interested in the ship. After discussing the price, she bought it for $80 million. As a pirate, Guret needed a disguise. There's nothing better than a cruise ship to disguise yourself. No one could have guessed that the cruise ship was a pirate ship. Plus, the ship was big enough to install some heavy weapons. Chun Zhao watched the ship approach. Just then, the pirates on the ship signaled for the research ship to stop. Chun Zhao saw Guret on the deck of the ship. Guret also saw Chun Zhao. She didn't expect Chun Zhao to appear on the research ship. Just then, the ship lowered a ladder. The people on the research ship were all nervous. Guret had a dominating position in this area. She was completely different from amateurs like Samantha. Guret was a professional and also the most powerful pirate in this area. She even dared to attack the Coast Guard. She definitely wasn't someone small fries like them could mess with. At this moment, Guret climbed down alone and jumped directly onto the deck of the research ship. When the crew on the deck saw her, they all backed away. Guret walked up to Samantha and Heppery. Isn't this the little girl from the Padley family? Hi. Samantha tried not to act impolitely. Guret patted Samantha's shoulder. But I'm not here for you. Guret walked to the second deck in a few steps. Hi, Chun. Chun Zhao opened his arms and hugged Guret. How come you're here? I should be asking you that. Why are you on this ship? Guret was already very familiar with Chun Zhao, so she didn't beat around the bush. Another big deal? Why didn't you call me? She really liked working with Chun Zhao because of his abilities and because he wouldn't use his own power to cheat others. Chun Zhao shook his head. It's not a deal. I'm just borrowing this ship to send me somewhere. Why not me? It's not a good place. You definitely won't like it. Chapter 25:31. It's not treasure hunting? Guret asked in a low voice. No. Guret nodded. Since Chun Zhao didn't say it, it was probably inconvenient. Do you need my help? Hurry up and leave. Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. Fine. Guret came calmly and left elegantly. The people on the ship looked at each other. The battle they were most worried about didn't happen. However, it seemed that Chun Zhao and Guret not only knew each other, but had a close relationship. But now, Chun Zhao had appeared on their ship. This caused them to be somewhat worried. Their original plan was to dump Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gaslight at a nearby port. But now it didn't seem so safe. Samantha thought for a moment and decided to negotiate with Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gaslight. Mr. Chun, Mr. Aqualati, can we talk? In the past 2 days, Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley had been very obedient. They didn't do anything improper. In the beginning, Siminta even deliberately deviated from the route. He wanted to see if they would do anything. In the end, no matter where the ship went, Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley didn't have any objections. It was as if they were really on the ship to feel the wind and waves. But after thinking carefully, they felt that it was impossible. The two of them had connections and were rich and wealthy. Why would they need to freeload her? Sure, what do we eat for lunch? Aqualati Gasley asked. Are there octopuses in this area? Chun Zhao asked. I want to eat braised octopus. Siminta's face darkened. I'm here to talk business with you too. Isn't this a serious matter? Hearing this, Siminta was speechless. Although she was angry, she still had a faint smile on her face. She couldn't afford to offend either of them. Can you two be direct? Why are you on my ship? Sightseeing. To enjoy the waves on the sea. To enjoy the fun of the sea. A yacht should be more comfortable. A yacht can't go far. Aqualati Gasley said matter-of-factly. Siminta rubbed his forehead. Guys, let's be honest, okay? Well, since we've come to this point, we might as well be frank. Anyway, we'll stay on the ship for a few days. We won't interfere with what you do, and we won't ask if you want to kill us or do scientific research. After a few days, we'll disembark on our own, but for the next few days, you can't chase us off the ship even if you want to. How many days? Siminta asked. Not necessarily. It depends on my mood. Siminta was even more speechless. These two were so stubborn. He couldn't get any information at all. Mr. Chun, Mr. Aqualati, we won't be docking for the rest of the voyage. If you want to disembark, the nearest port is the port of Hawaii. We'll arrive at the port of Hawaii tonight. Once we miss the port of Hawaii, there won't be a chance to disembark again. Don't worry. If you're annoyed by us, just throw us into the sea and we'll swim back ourselves. You can also give us a small boat. Rowing on the sea seems pretty interesting. Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley both looked as if they deserved a beating. Siminta was a bit annoyed. She watched as Chun Zhao and Aqualati pretended to be stupid, but there was nothing she could do. You're really not afraid that I'll make you go into the sea right now? Wow, you're really going to do that? We were just joking earlier. How far is the coastline from here? Very far. Then what should we do? Siminta looked at the two before her. They said they were afraid, but their expressions were fake. There was no fear on their faces at all. Instead, their eager eyes made people want to beat them up. Siminta didn't know what trump cards they had. Were they really not afraid that she would kill them on the ship? Whatever. Suit yourself. Furious, Siminta turned to leave. She really didn't want to continue discussing with these two astrous souls. She didn't get any useful information from them in such a short time. Instead, she was infuriated. Fortunately, Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley didn't show any malice. Otherwise, Siminta would really throw them into the sea. That night, the research ship passed by the Hawaiian Islands. However, the ship didn't stop. Instead, it continued on its planned route. As they left the coastal waters, the waves on the sea grew stronger and stronger. Nevertheless, the research ship was still stable in the wind and waves. After all, it was a large ship with a displacement of more than 18,000 tons. Miss, let's just throw them into the sea, Herberly said, annoyed. If they're on our ship, we'll be restrained. Even if we see a fat sheep, we won't dare to attack them. Neither of them is simple. You've seen it. 2 days ago, Guret saw the Huaxiao man surnamed Chun, and then he ran to our ship to greet him regardless of the danger. Their friendship is really incomparable to that of ordinary people. We can't afford to offend Aqualati Gasley. Do you think they're really out of their minds to come to our ship to play? What could we have on the ship that they're after? That's what I find strange, too. They boarded our ship on purpose. It's obvious that they're after something on the ship. Just then, a crewman ran in. Captain, there's a kayak up ahead. There's a man on it. He seems to have drifted on the sea for a few days. He looks like he's starved to death. Siminta and Herberly exchanged glances. Pull him up to take a look. The two also went to the deck and watched as the kayak was pulled up by a crane. The man on the kayak looked haggard. Who knew how long he'd been drifting on the sea? He was on the verge of death. Only his faint panting let people know that he was still alive. Miss, what should we do? Herberly asked in a low voice. Since we've saved him, let's treat him and see if he's useful, Simenta replied in a low voice. After that, the victim, who had almost turned into a dried-up corpse, was carried into the cabin by 2 crew members. Simenta looked back at Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gisli, who were on the second deck. These days, they liked to stay on the second deck and whisper to each other. Leaning against the second deck, Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gisli watched the victim being pulled up. That person is covered in curses. Maybe he's the one who's here to welcome us, Aqualati Gisli said. What's the point of this? I think I've guessed Leviathan Abaron Tegmis's intentions. What's the point? Chapter 25:32. If Leviathan left the mark on the ship, it means that he needs resources. If he left the mark on a person, it means that he needs the person, Aqualati Girly said. Although I don't know why Leviathan Abaron Tegmis needs Simenta, since he left a mark on Simenta, it means that Simenta is of some value to Leviathan Abaron Tegmis. But the others on the ship aren't the people he wants, so he either recycles them and turns them into low-level sources of pollution or uses them as food. Either way, he won't let them enter Demon Island's waters. Sources of pollution? Like that dying guy? He's a pathogen, Aqualati Girly said. The curse and voodoo he carries will infect most people on the ship. Those who are infected are called sources of pollution. What's the difference? Although pathogens and sources of pollution can infect others with voodoo and curses, the source of pollution is just a simple infection. After a pathogen infects others with voodoo and curses, it will absorb most of the vitality and power of the other party. People who become sources of pollution will also lose their vitality and become hungry. At this time, they need to constantly infect others, and everyone who is directly infected or indirectly infected will have their vitality flow to the pathogen. In other words, the more people it infects, the more powerful the pathogen will be. Yes, if you throw this pathogen in a densely populated area, won't it be invincible? It's not that simple. Basically, people in the spiritual world know how to deal with this kind of enemy. As long as you kill the pathogen, other sources of pollution will die too. Even if you throw it in a densely populated area, it won't really grow. Unless it infects tens of thousands of people, it won't be much trouble for most spiritualists. Shen Zhao thought about it. It made sense. Unless thousands or tens of thousands of people were all gathered in a small space. Otherwise, the pathogen wouldn't be able to infect them all at once. Moreover, indirect transmission would be easily discovered. How is he? Samina asked. Looks like he's just dehydrated and malnourished, the doctor said. I'll inject him with a bottle of glucose first. When he wakes up, I'll arrange some food for him. Ahem. Also, arrange a cabin with better ventilation for him. This cabin is too stuffy. Although Samina heard the doctor's words, she didn't plan to do so. She did not save this person out of sudden kindness. He just wanted to confirm his identity and maybe get some benefits from him. In fact, this logic was very simple. If the victim was in trouble on a ship, the priority to be assigned to the lifeboat would definitely be the person with the highest status or the richest person. Therefore, Samina felt that he had some value. Samantha and the ship's doctor went out of the cabin. For some reason, Samantha felt uneasy. When he wakes up, let's confirm his identity first. If he's worthless. Ahem, I know what to do, the ship doctor said. None of the people on this ship were good people. Basically, good people wouldn't board this ship. Looks like you're also sick. Don't go to the deck to enjoy the sea breeze for the next 2 days. Cough, cough. Maybe I caught a cold last night. The ship's doctor coughed a few more times. The first infected person has appeared. I want to see what happens next, Aqualati Gasley said. Let's see what happens next, Aqualati Gasley said. Chun Zhao had the same plan. However, Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley's curiosity didn't last long. That was because the first infected doctor fainted in the evening of the same day. That night, 2 crew members helped take care of the doctor. Then they were indirectly infected too. All this happened under Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley's watchful eyes. However, the 2 were very cold-blooded spectators. They had no intention of interfering. Damn it, the guy we saved yesterday seems to have some kind of infectious disease. The ship doctor treated him yesterday, and he got sick. Now the ship doctor has infected the other 2 crew members, Hepele said to Simenta. What do we do now? We can't keep the guy on the ship. Throw him into the sea, Simenta said, her face pale. Also wear a gas mask. Don't get infected again. Hepele nodded and called for the 2 crew members to follow him. They arrived outside the cabin of the person they'd saved yesterday. You 2 wear gas masks and drag that guy out. The 2 crew members were a bit unwilling, but they had to listen to Hepele here. However, the moment they opened the cabin, they were both shocked. Hepele, come in and see. When Herberly entered the cabin, he was also shocked. The body of the shriveled patient on the bed swelled up a little. The cabin was filled with a strange mucus. The mucus intersected with each other, blocking everyone's path. Hepele, do you know what's going on? Hepele's expression was serious. He didn't know what it was. However, he knew that it definitely wasn't anything good. Just then, the pathogen on the bed suddenly opened its eyes. Then, it opened its mouth and spat out a stream of mucus. A crew member couldn't dodge in time and was sprayed by the mucus. The mucus pinned the crew member to the wall behind him. Quick, save me. The crew member screamed in horror. Hepele and the other crew member were scared out of their wits. The pathogen stood up unsteadily. Hepele looked at the crew member who was pinned to the wall and shouted, Go! At the same time, Hepele pulled the frightened crew member out and closed the cabin door. However, they could still see through the round glass on the cabin door. They saw the pathogen stagger towards the crew member who was pinned to the wall. Facing the crew member who was screaming in horror, the pathogen opened its mouth. It didn't directly touch the crew member, but the crew member's body began to wither. On the contrary, the pathogen was withering. His originally shriveled body was becoming plump. Seeing this scene, Hepele and the other crew member were scared pale. Hepele didn't dare to delay any longer. You watch over here. I'll inform the captain. Me? What are you afraid of? That guy can't come out. Lock the cabin door. Chapter 25:33. After hearing Herberly's words, Simenta immediately followed him to the pathogen's cabin. Through the glass window, she saw the strange scene inside. Simenta's expression turned serious. Suddenly, she thought of something and exclaimed, Go to the doctor. There are 2 other infected crew members in the cabin. Herbery and Simenta went to the 2 crew members' cabins first. They found that they were withered, just like the pathogen. Simenta and Herbery didn't dare to go in. They had someone seal the cabin door. Just then, a crew member ran over hurriedly. Captain, assistant, the doctor's cabin is empty. He's missing. Simenta and Herbery's expressions changed drastically. What they were most worried about had finally happened. Simenta and Herbery immediately told all the crew members to be on guard. They also arranged for all the crew members to search for the doctor. Everyone was equipped with weapons. If they found the doctor, they could kill him directly. But after searching for a while, they couldn't find him at all. Moreover, the ship was too big. There were many pipes and circuits that people couldn't go in to check. They could only leave it at that. They could only hope that the doctor had fallen into the sea. It seems that the infected people don't become stupid. Instead, they become much smarter. The doctor didn't become smarter, Aquilati Ghastly said. He lost his intelligence and gained instincts. Both knew where the doctor was hiding. After he woke up, he wasn't himself anymore. At the moment, the doctor was hiding in the ventilation duct. Does he want to spread the voodoo and curse through the duct? Chun Zhao asked. If the voodoo and curse could be spread over long distances, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Both the pathogen and the source of the infection have to be spread over a short distance to infect the target. He's only hiding in the duct for a sneak attack. While Chun Zhao and Aquilati Ghastly were discussing, Chun Zhao suddenly stopped talking. One of the crew members was attacked by the doctor. The crew member returned to the cabin alone. He wanted to lie on the bed and rest. But as soon as he closed his eyes, the doctor climbed out of the duct without a sound. Before the crew member could even open his eyes, the doctor had already pressed him onto the bed. What happened next couldn't be described as disgusting. It was also very dirty. Chen Zhao gave up on the surveillance. Only Aqualati Gaslight was still monitoring all the movements on the ship with great interest. For the rest of the day, everyone on the ship was in a state of panic. More and more people were infected. In the beginning, Siminta and Hepari were able to barely control the situation. The infected people were locked in the cabins. But as the number of people increased, the situation became chaotic. Those who were infected did not immediately lose their minds, but they didn't want to be locked up and wait for death. Or rather, they didn't want to die alone. They pulled everyone down to die with them. This caused the two sides to start fighting. This is a human. Aqualati Gaslight glanced at Chen Zhao. This is human nature. Plus, you don't seem to have a right to mock me, right? You're attacking your own kind to survive, aren't you? You're using your own kind as stepping stones to escape. Humans aren't the only ones who do this. Demons do it too. I won't defend myself. I don't like the hypocrisy of humans, but humans know how to create. This is something powerful demons can't compare to. Aqualati Gaslight said indifferently. He held a glass of iced whiskey in his left hand and a bottle in his right. Do you want one? Bang, bang. Just then, 2 gunshots came from the cabin below. They'd heard many gunshots today, but the 2 shots were very close. Then they saw Siminta and Hepari run out. They both had guns. After coming out of the corridor, they closed the cabin door and bolted it. Only then did the 2 heave a sigh of relief. Everyone in the cabin had gone crazy. Everyone. It was as if they'd gone crazy. They couldn't tell who was infected either. Everyone was infected, but because of this, they didn't dare to come into contact with others, afraid of being infected. Anyone who dared to cough would be seen as an infected person. Those who were infected at the beginning also started to change. This caused the situation to become even more chaotic. Siminta and Hepari could no longer control the situation, so they could only escape outside. But as soon as they took a breather, they realized that Chen Zhao and Aqualati Gaslight were on the second deck. The cold wind was howling outside. The 2 on the second deck were still drinking iced whiskey. Seeing the 2 of them, Siminta was infuriated. Their cabin was already in a mess. However, the 2 of them acted as if nothing had happened and stayed out of the matter. It was as if the chaos on the ship had nothing to do with them. Hepari suddenly raised his gun and aimed it at Chen Zhao and Aqualati Gaslight. Are you going to kill 2 of the 4 normal people on the ship? Aqualati Gaslight asked, smiling. Both Siminta and Hepari's faces turned green. Do you know what happened on the ship? Yes. The person you saved yesterday had some kind of disease and it spread to your people. You already knew, didn't you? Siminta suddenly vented his anger on the 2 annoying people in front of him. How would we know? Who could have predicted this? Siminta pressed down on Hepari's gun. When the 2 walked to the second deck, they realized that it was filled with all kinds of supplies and food. Where did these come from? We moved them out when you were having a civil war. Is there a problem? You're just going to take advantage of us? Siminta's suppressed anger rose again. Aqualati, you're indeed too much, Chen Zhao said. Is that so? Am I going too far? Can we return these things to them? Siminta's face turned red. In the end, he snorted heavily. Don't be unhappy. Look, I also brought 2 sleeping bags for you. You can sleep outside tonight. At least you won't freeze to death. At this moment, the cabin had completely fallen, and most of those who were still alive had already been infected. Even if they weren't, they wouldn't dare to go in and take the supplies. So, these supplies had become their life-saving straw. Although he was very unhappy with Chen Zhao and Aqualati Gaslight, he had to admit that they had a clear mind and acted quickly. He was very displeased with Chen Zhao and Aqualati Gaslight. He had to admit that the 2 had a clear mind and acted quickly. 9 Heavens Divine King. Chapter 25:34. At night, the sea was covered in a thick fog. It was also accompanied by a cold current. Both Siminta and Hepburn shivered in the cold wind. Even their sleeping bags couldn't keep their body warm. Siminta was woken up by the cold. When she opened her eyes, she realized that Chen Zhao and Aqualati Gaslight hadn't gone to sleep. Right now, They were both sitting on a folding chair with fishing rods in front of them and drinking alcohol. Samantha was speechless. Aren't you cold at all? The two weren't wearing much. It was a foggy night with a cold current. How could they not feel cold? Even the iron railings were covered in icicles. Even Samantha was woken up by the cold in her sleeping bag. It wasn't hard to imagine how cold it was. However, Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley faced the cold wind fearlessly. It was too abnormal. Awake, Chun Zhao turned around and glanced at Samantha. Do you want a glass of cold whiskey? It feels great. Aqualati Gasley patted his big belly. Samantha was completely speechless. Alcohol could drive away the cold, but in such an environment, even alcohol was useless, let alone whiskey. Samantha couldn't sleep anymore. It was too cold. He couldn't sleep at all. Samantha stood up and put on a thick jacket. Where are we now? I don't know, Chun Zhao said indifferently. Do you dare to enter the cockpit? At this moment, the cockpit had long since been covered by those sticky things. Going in would only result in death. Samantha looked at Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley. Aren't you worried about your safety at all? Of course, but what can we do? That's right. Worrying is unnecessary, so it's better to just stay put. A while later, Hepburn woke up too. Miss, why don't you sleep a bit longer? What do you think? Samantha said unhappily. Have you thought of anything? Hepburn looked around and then at Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley. Then she shook her head. It was obvious that Hepburn had something to say. Clearly, he was worried about Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley. But Hupri gave Samantha a look. Not long after, the two met at the bow of the ship. Here, the cold wind was howling and the waves were crashing. They believed that their conversation would definitely not be heard by Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley. What do you think? Miss, this ship is completely out of control. We can't stay here any longer. The only way to survive is the submarine. Herberly pointed at the small submarine hanging on the arm. But the control stick is in the cockpit. I'll go in, Hupri said. No, it's filled with that kind of mucus. That mucus contains the virus. If you go in, you'll become like those people. Not for a while. As long as we get rid of the infected people in the cockpit, I will control the crane to lower the submarine. However, we cannot let those two people go up. Also, we have to find a way to bring the food up. Hepburn, you don't have to do this. Of course, Samantha didn't want Hepburn to die. Her relationship with Hepburn was naturally incomparable to that of the other crew members. She didn't care even if all the other crew members died. But she didn't want Hepburn to die, especially if he sacrificed himself for her. No, this is our only hope. Holding the gun in his hand, Hepburn looked at Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley on the second deck. I'll go kill them now, Hepburn said decisively. Samantha immediately became nervous. Hepburn, let's think of another way. There's no other way. Mississippi, don't say anything. Hepburn walked toward Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley. Suddenly, he raised the gun and pointed at them. Hepburn, what are you doing? Aqualati Gasley looked at Hepburn. What do you think? I think you're joking. It's not funny, Hepburn replied coldly. Even if you want to kill us with a gun, you should at least load it with bullets. Aqualati Gasley opened his left hand, revealing a dozen bullets. Hepburn's expression changed. When you were asleep, of course, Aqualati Gasley teased. Aqualati Gisley teased. I saw you putting your gun in your belt while you were sleeping. I was afraid that you would accidentally fire and shoot your penis, so I kindly put away your bullets. Aren't you grateful to me? Hepburn suddenly pulled out a dagger from behind him. He seemed to be planning to fight Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley. He thought that with a dagger in hand, Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley definitely wouldn't be his match. However, Aqualati Gasley took out a pistol. Ah, you lost. Hepburn's face was livid. He knew that he'd lost. Do you really think that submarine can save Samantha? How did you know? Our conversation. Both Hepburn and Samantha were shocked. The bow of the submarine was 30 meters away. The wind and waves were strong, so the sound couldn't reach them. If I said SF, would you believe me? Ha! You planted a bug on us? Chun Zhao and Aqualati Gasley both rolled their eyes. Even an idiot knows what you're trying to do. You want to kill us and take the resources. Mr. Aquilati, please stop, Siminta finally said. Hepeli, put down your knife too. Hepeli thought for a moment and finally put down his knife. If he had a chance of winning, he wouldn't give up on the idea. But no matter how fast he couldn't be faster than Aquilati Gasly's gun. Aquilati Gasly put away his gun without hesitation. This action made Huperi eager to give it a try. Yo, the big fish took the bait. Chun Zhao's sudden voice gave Hepeli and Siminta a fright. Chun Zhao pulled the rod hard, and a 300-kilogram bluefin tuna flew into the air. Then it smashed heavily at their feet. Hepeli and Siminta's expressions changed. They really didn't realize that Chun Zhao was so strong before. Even the most experienced fisherman would have to struggle for 2 hours to pull such a huge tuna out of the water. But Chun Zhao had actually lifted the fish into the air. It felt like he caught a small fish. His strength was too terrifying. This fish is enough for us to eat for more than 10 days. In this weather, there's a lot of ice on the hull. We don't have to worry about water at all. We can keep going without taking risks. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.